Chapter 2780. Good. Now leave with this old man. Come to this old man's residence. I will spread the news that Xinger has been rescued by this old man. Little brother, you should change your appearance so this old man can bring you away, Gu Bo said. Lu Ming nodded. At this time, he could only choose to believe Gu Bo. Moreover, with Gu Bo's cultivation, there was no need to lie to him. He did not have a hostage in his hands. If Gu Bo wanted to kill him, it would be a piece of cake. Immediately, Lu Ming changed his appearance and clothes and followed Gu Bo outside. Soon, a group of people flew in front of them. When they saw Gu Xing, they were overjoyed. Third Miss, are you all right? Someone was overjoyed. Don't worry, Third Miss has been rescued by me, Gu Bo said. Lord Grand Elder, I wonder how that foreign brat is doing? Someone asked. That brat has already been killed by this old man. Not even his bones remain. You can rest assured, Gu Bo said. I see. The group of people nodded, but when they glanced at Lu Ming, they still showed a trace of suspicion. However, in front of Gu Bo, they did not dare to be presumptuous. Gu Bo was one of the few remaining grand elders of the ancient god descendants. His seniority was frighteningly high. The group of people glanced at Lu Ming, and then left. Lu Ming followed Gu Bo and arrived at Gu Bo's residence without any mishap. For the rest of the time, Lu Ming would stay here while Gu Bo would secretly contact experts whom he could trust. 1 month later they would stop the leader of the descendants of the ancient gods. Gu Xing was obviously absent-minded. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, a month had passed. This day was the day when the ancient god descendants worshipped their ancestors. The location was the gathering place of the 8 valleys, the place full of ancient god flowers. That place was the sacred place of the ancient god clan. The gathering place of the 8 valleys was full of people. Most of the ancient god descendants had gathered at the gathering place of the 8 valleys. On the northern cliff, there was a group of people standing. The leader was a middle-aged burly man with a square face and a dignified face. This person was the ancient god descendants' patriarch, Gu Xing's father, Gu Xiong. Beside Gu Xiong stood the first elder and a few other elders. Ancestral worship begins! Gu Xiong's voice resounded throughout the entire arena. Welcome, ancestral altar! All the members of the ancient god clan shouted in unison. Then, 8 abnormally tall and sturdy men, carrying an altar, stepped into the air and flew over. With every step they took, there would be a dull thud in the void. It was as if they were walking while carrying a divine mountain. This altar was ancient and full of vicissitudes. It was the ancestral altar of the ancient god clan. When the 8 burly men carried the altar to the place where the 8 valleys converged, the altar emitted a resplendent light. Runes appeared on it, and then it flew into the void and began to expand. Whoosh! Gu Xiong flew to the altar and sat down cross-legged. All the descendants of the ancient gods bowed to Gu Xiong. Today, after today, I will definitely rise again. The ancient god clan will definitely rise again. I hope you don't blame me. What you've done is worth it. Looking at the thousands of descendants of the ancient gods, Gu Xiong roared in his heart. He had been preparing for this day for far too long. Today, he would condense the ancient god heart. He wanted to recreate the glory of the ancient gods. Second elder, fifth elder, you can all go down. At this moment, Gu Xiong looked at some of the people on the cliff. Many of them were elders of the descendants of the ancient gods. We have to go down too. The elders were stunned. According to the usual practice, the elders only needed to stand on the cliff. There was no need for them to go down. That's right. All of you go down, Gu Xiong said again. His tone was a little heavier. Although the elders were a little confused, they did not disobey. They flew down to the place where the 8 valleys converged and stood in the sea of ancient god flowers. Of course, not all of the elders flew down. For example, the first elder and a few others were still standing there, not moving. Obviously, these people had known about Gu Xiong's plan and were supporters of Gu Xiong. Where's Xinger? Is she not here? Gu Xiong looked at the great elder. Third Miss is not here. She has been staying with Grand Elder Gu Bo, the Great Elder reported. Is that so? That's good too. Gu Xiong's eyes flashed with a strange light. In fact, at this moment, Gu Xing was already nearby. Gu Xing, Lu Ming, Gu Bo, and some of the people that Gu Bo contacted came to a secret place in the distance, and watched from a distance. Father, I hope you won't do anything foolish. Gu Xing clenched her hands tightly. She was very nervous. At this moment, Gu Xiong began to speak. We, the descendants of the ancient gods, are the descendants of the ancient gods. We have noble blood flowing in our veins. We should be the rulers of the primitive universe, the royal family of the primitive universe. But now, we are hiding on a small planet. Fellow clansmen, are you willing to accept this? Gu Xiong's voice was heard. Yes. Yes. The descendants of the ancient gods shouted. Their voices were loud enough to topple mountains and overturn seas. I am not willing to accept this either. Gu Xing shouted. I once swore that I will lead our clan to glory in this life. For this, I will do anything, including my own life. What about you? Are you willing to sacrifice your lives for the glory of our clan? Yes. We are willing to sacrifice our lives. The descendants of the ancient gods shouted. Good. Since you are all willing, today is the day you sacrifice yourselves to make our clan successful. Activate the Grand Array. Gu Xing shouted. His eyes were suddenly filled with cold, murderous intent. Activate the Grand Array. The Great Elder and the others also shouted. Suddenly, countless runes appeared on the cliff and the ground of the Eight Valleys congregation. A light shield completely shrouded the descendants of the ancient gods in the Eight Valleys congregation. What is going on? Patriarch, what are you doing? Many of the descendants of the ancient gods felt that something was wrong and shouted. But the next moment, a scream was heard. A cloud of blood-red mist appeared and shrouded an ancient god descendant. The descendant's cultivation was not high. His flesh and blood were quickly corroded and turned into a pool of blood. What is going on? Patriarch, what are you doing? Many people shouted. Father. In the distance, Gu Xing collapsed on the ground as if she had been drained of her strength. Her eyes were full of disappointment. As expected. Rush out and stop them. Remember, deactivate the Grand Array first. Gu Bo roared and took the lead to rush out. The others followed Gu Bo and flew out. Lu Ming mixed in the crowd and flew out together. Your sacrifice will be exchanged for the glory of our clan. Go in peace. Gu Xiong's cold voice was heard. Beast. You are a beast. You want to sacrifice us for your own sake? Some elders finally saw through Gu Xiong's sinister intentions and shouted. Chapter 2781. Charge! Charge out! All of the ancient god descendants were enraged. They charged towards the light barrier and attacked it. However, the light barrier did not budge at all. They could not break it at all. Screams were heard continuously. The blood-red mist in the formation grew thicker. Those with weaker cultivation could not withstand it at all. Once they were enveloped by the blood-red mist, only death was waiting for them. At this moment, Gu Bo and the rest had arrived. Gu Xiong, you're ambitious. You want to condense the ancient god's heart by sacrificing so many people. I won't allow you to do that. Gu Bo roared. It's Eminent Elder Gu Bo. It's Eminent Elder Gu Bo. The ancient god descendants who were trapped in the formation were overjoyed when they saw Gu Bo. Gu Bo! Gu Xiong looked at Gu Bo with cold killing intent in his eyes. Leave Gu Xiong to me. You guys go and close the formation. Gu Bo shouted at the others and pounced on Gu Xiong. You think you can stop me? Naive. Die. Gu Xiong shouted and flew up into the sky, punching towards Gu Bo. Gu Bo did not evade at all and also exploded with an attack, blasting out a terrifying attack. Boom! The two of them collided, causing a loud explosion. However, the result was a tie. As the leader of the ancient god descendants, Gu Xiong's strength was also shocking. He had reached the third-level heavenly god realm. The two of them engaged in an intense battle. For a moment, it was hard to determine the winner. On the other hand, Lu Ming and the rest dashed toward the array base on the cliff. You want to close the formation? Don't even think about it. Stop them. If they resist, kill them without mercy. The Great Elder gave the order and soared into the sky, unleashing a terrifying attack. The Great Elder was a first-level heavenly god. He was extremely terrifying. However, there was also a first-level heavenly god on Lu Ming's side. He charged towards the Great Elder, and both sides engaged in an intense battle. Lu Ming and the rest were engaged in a fierce battle with the others. Ice chains! At this moment, Lu Ming did not care about hiding his identity. He used all his strength. 9 ice chains flew out and swept towards the ancient god descendants. It's you, outsider! As soon as Lu Ming attacked, the first elder recognized Lu Ming. He let out a furious roar, his eyes filled with malevolence. It was all because of Lu Ming that he had watched helplessly as his son died in the array. He wished he could grind Lu Ming's bones to dust. Kill this brat! The Great Elder roared. Leave this brat to me. An old man charged towards Lu Ming. The saber in his hand slashed out rays of saber light. Clang! Clang! The saber light slashed at the ice chains and sent them flying back. This old man was an elder of the ancient god's descendants. His cultivation had reached the peak of true divinity, and his strength was shocking. He wasn't any weaker than Lu Zhong back then. Lu Ming was immediately blocked, retreating again and again. Both sides were locked in a fierce battle. Father, stop it, stop it! At this moment, Gu Xing also flew over and shouted loudly. Xinger, go to the side. This has nothing to do with you. Gu Xiong shouted coldly. Father, stop it. Those are our people. Our ancient god's descendants don't have many people to begin with. If this continues, I'm afraid our clan will be exterminated. Gu Xing shouted. Nonsense. As long as I condense the ancient god's heart, I will definitely lead our clan to glory. Their sacrifice will be worth it. Gu Xiong roared, his eyes filled with madness. Father! Gu Xing's eyes were filled with disappointment. She gritted her teeth and rushed towards Gu Xiong. Xinger, you! Gu Xiong was slightly shocked when he saw Gu Xing rushing towards him. With such a shock, his speed was slightly slower. Gu Bo seized the opportunity and punched Gu Xiong's shoulder. Gu Xiong retreated and coughed out blood. Gu Xiong, quickly close the array. Don't be stubborn. Gu Bo shouted. At this moment, there were ancient gods' descendants dying in the array. His heart was bleeding. Impossible! Gu Xiong roared. If that's the case, don't blame me for being ruthless. Gu Bo charged at Gu Xiong. Humph, Gu Bo, do you think I don't know that you're trying to stop me today? You thought you were being discreet, but I've already seen through it. Come out. Gu Xiong smirked and waved his hand. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, 2 streaks of rainbow light rushed out from not far away, flying towards Gu Bo with astonishing speed. Both of them were old men. One was an old man while the other was an old woman. They seemed to be as old as Gu Bo. Gu Shang, Gu Ling, it's you! Gu Bo was astounded. These two were on par with him. They were the other 2 elders among the descendants of the ancient god. There were 3 elders among the descendants of the ancient god. They were Gu Bo, Gu Shang, and Gu Ling. Kill! Gu Shang and Gu Ling charged at Gu Bo. Their cultivation was at the 3rd layer heaven god realm. Their strength was on par with Gu Bo's. Gu Bo was no match for them when they teamed up. He was sent flying with a single blow, and vomited blood. Gu Shang, Gu Ling, what are you doing? Even you two are being bullied? Gu Bo yelled. However, Gu Shang and Gu Ling continued to charge at Gu Bo as if they did not hear him. Their attacks were filled with murderous intent. Ha ha, stop yelling. I've long controlled their minds. They are completely under my control. You won't be able to stop me today, ha ha ha! Gu Bo burst out laughing. He waved his hand and unleashed a god force, encapsulating Gu Xing and controlling her movements. At the same time, he moved and charged toward Lu Ming and the rest. Crap! Lu Ming and the others were astounded. 2 third-level celestial god experts suddenly appeared. Their strength had completely surpassed their side. They were definitely not a match for them. Lu Ming immediately backed away without hesitation. However, Gu Xiong had long noticed him. He harumphed coldly and waved his hand. A giant palm print slammed down at Lu Ming. A terrifying aura locked onto Lu Ming. Lu Ming had nowhere to run. However, Lu Ming would not surrender. He would not sit still and wait for his death. World extinguishing 3 strikes, moon slashing. Lu Ming let out a low roar and unleashed all his strength, turning it into a shocking spear ray that attacked the palm print. At the same time, 9 icy chains pierced at the palm print like 9 silver divine spears. Bang! Bang! A series of explosions were heard as the mountain-like spear rays slammed into the palm print, triggering a violent energy. However, Gu Xiong's palm print was too powerful. The abundant energy burst out and shattered Lu Ming's spear ray. Even the 9 icy chains were shattered. However, the icy chains were only a secret technique. They could be reformed after being shattered. Bang! Lu Ming was struck by the palm print and slammed heavily onto the ground. He spat out mouthfuls of blood. Many of his bones were broken. He was severely injured from the attack. Not dead? Gu Xiong was slightly startled. Although the attack was just a casual attack, it was still effective against a first-layer true god. He was extremely surprised. Chapter 2782. Patriarch, don't kill him. It's too easy on him if you kill him directly. I want to throw him into the array and watch him die a miserable death. The great elder called out with a ferocious look in his eyes. Because of Lu Ming, his son had died in the array and his flesh and blood had been melted. He wanted Lu Ming to die in the array as well. Only then would he be able to vent the hatred in his heart. All right, let's send him into the Great Formation then. Gu Xiong nodded. With a wave of his hand, a powerful force gushed out. With a push from this force, Lu Ming flew directly into the array. Back again! Lu Ming was speechless. He gathered his god force to resist the blood-red mist outside. However, due to the great battle outside, no one was controlling the array. The array's operation was slower, and the mist was not dense. Therefore, the number of ancient god descendants who died was not high. After sending Lu Ming into the array, Gu Xiong attacked the others. In front of Gu Xiong, the others were unable to resist at all. They were all suppressed by Gu Xiong and sent into the array. Since they wanted to resist him, he would turn them into blood to nourish the ancient god flower and fulfill his ancient god heart. The people Gu Bo had brought with him were wiped out. Gu Xing was controlled by Gu Bo and could not move. Her face was filled with disappointment and anxiety. At this moment, Gu Bo himself was in great danger. He was no match for 2 experts at the same level as him. He was injured and would not be able to hold on for much longer. Gu Bo, let's go in together! Gu Xiong said coldly and attacked Gu Bo personally. Gu Bo was already no match for Gu Xiong, and with Gu Xiong, it was even harder for him to resist. In just a few moves he was struck by Gu Xiong and suffered heavy injuries. Bang! Bang! Gu Shang and Gu Ling attacked Gu Bo from the front and back. Gu Bo's divine body almost exploded and his injuries worsened. He no longer had the strength to fight back. Gu Bo, go in! Gu Xiong said coldly. Boundless God Force suppressed Gu Bo and sent him into the array. In this way, Gu Bo and the others were annihilated. Grandpa Gu Bo, father, don't! Gu Xing screamed. Shut up. What I'm doing is a major matter of reviving the descendants of the ancient gods. What do you know? Gu Xiong shouted coldly. With a flash of his body, he returned to the altar. Continue operating the formation, Gu Xiong ordered. Activate the formation! The first elder and the others appeared on the cliffs in the 8 directions, controlling the formation. Within the formation, dazzling runes filled the air, and the blood-red mist rapidly increased. More and more descendants of the ancient gods began to fall. Ah, Gu Xiong, you'll die a horrible death! You've lost your mind for your own selfish reasons. Many of the ancient gods' descendants cursed. However, Gu Xiong's expression was calm and unmoved. As the descendants of the ancient gods continued to fall, their flesh and blood seeped into the ground and were absorbed by the ancient god flower. The ancient god flower became even more alluring and plump. The ancient god flowers that covered the whole mountain emitted a rich fragrance. It's time! A look of anticipation flashed across Gu Xiong's eyes. His hands quickly formed seals as runes entered the altar beneath his feet. The altar emitted a resplendent radiance as runes extended out like tentacles, fusing with the entire array. 1. At this moment, the entire 8 valleys converged and all the ancient god flowers emitted wisps of blood-red energy. They were like blood-red threads that converged towards Gu Xiong. Gu Xiong was instantly surrounded by a layer of blood-red energy. It's coming! It's coming! Ha ha ha! I'm going to condense the heart of the ancient god! Gu Xiong was ecstatic. They were called descendants of the ancient gods, but in fact, the ancient god bloodline in their bodies was extremely thin and their potential was very limited. However, once they condensed the heart of the ancient god, it would be different. Their potential would be limitless and their future growth would be astonishing. Sigh, it's still hard to stop it. Gu Bo sighed helplessly. Ha ha ha, the heavens are on my side. No, the heavens are on your side, kid. At this moment, Gu Mo was laughing in his sea of consciousness. He was extremely excited. Now that it's over, you're still laughing so happily. Lu Ming was speechless. Nonsense. Brat, your great opportunity has arrived. Gu Mo laughed. Opportunity? What opportunity? Lu Ming asked. Those idiots. If they killed you outside the formation, I wouldn't be able to do anything, but they thought they were smart and sent you into the formation. Then I have a way. Gu Mo laughed. What way? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Don't you have the quantifier formula? Let the quantifier formula compete with the clan leader for the energy of the ancient god flower and attract all the energy of the ancient god flower. I have a way to make the energy belong to you and help you condense the heart of the ancient god. Gu Mo said. That works? Lu Ming was overjoyed. It should work. I can attract all the energy outside. The voice of the quantifier formula sounded. Then, won't all these people of the ancient god clan die? Lu Ming frowned. No need. As long as the quantifier formula absorbs the energy outside and competes with the clan leader will suffer a backlash and the formation will stop. Don't worry. In fact, the energy of the ancient god flower is enough to condense the heart of the ancient god. It's just that the clan leader is too greedy. Gu Mo said. Well, there's no time to lose. Let's get started. Lu Ming said hurriedly. Watch me. The quantifier formula gave out a dazzling light. Even Lu Ming's glabella was filled with a layer of light. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, a terrifying attractive force was generated. The energy that was gathering toward Gu Xiong suddenly changed direction and gathered toward Lu Ming. All of them poured into Lu Ming's glabella and entered the quantifier formula. However, it was not refined this time. After the quantifier formula, it immediately spread out and poured into Lu Ming's body. Condense. Gu Mo made a move. He condensed a magical seal and guided the energy to gather toward Lu Ming's heart. What's going on? What's going on? At this moment, Gu Xiong roared angrily. The energy of the ancient god flower kept gathering toward him. He had a feeling that the heart of the ancient god would be condensed soon. However, all of a sudden, the energy outside changed its direction and converged toward Lu Ming. What frightened him was that he had merged with the formation at this moment. He had no control over his body. The energy he had absorbed just now, and even his own energy, kept pouring out and rushing toward Lu Ming. This kid, damn it, stop it! Gu Xiong roared angrily. What's going on? The others were also baffled, unable to make heads or tails of it. Absorb, absorb, I'll absorb. The quantifier formula worked hard to absorb the energy outside. The energy in the ancient god flower kept gathering toward Lu Ming, including Gu Xiong's. Chapter 2783. Gu Xiong suffered a backlash. The blood-colored mist in the formation did not continue to become denser, instead, it slowly thinned. Damn it, little bastard, what did you do? Stop it! Stop it! Gu Xiong roared crazily. He was going crazy. Originally, the energy he absorbed from the ancient god flower had all been absorbed by Lu Ming. Even his own energy, blood essence, and blood had turned into wisps of blood qi and were absorbed by Lu Ming. His essence qi was being severely depleted, and his body was rapidly shriveling. This made him extremely terrified. At this moment, there was a scarlet light shining in Lu Ming's heart. From the measure character formula, energy was constantly flowing and gathering in his heart. Lu Ming was about to condense the ancient god heart. On the ground, the ancient god flowers that covered the mountains and plains were also shriveling. This is a backlash. Gu Bo's eyes lit up, as if he had seen something. He was very surprised. This way, at least the descendants of the ancient god race would not have to be buried with him. Close the formation! Quickly close the formation! Gu Xiong roared. The Great Elder and the others quickly closed the formation. The formation's light barrier disappeared, and the blood-colored mist also disappeared. However, Gu Xiong did not obtain freedom. He was completely restrained, fused with the formation. As long as the measure character formula did not let go, he would not obtain freedom. Damn it, kill that kid! Gu Xiong roared. Kill! The Great Elder and the others charged towards Lu Ming. Don't even think about it. Everyone attack together, stop them! Gu Bo roared. Attack! The formation disappeared, and those who were originally trapped in the formation could naturally attack. They furiously attacked the Great Elder and the others. They had a lot of people, and all of them attacked together, blocking the attacks of the Great Elder and the others. Kill! Gu Shang and Gu Ling were controlled, and they completely obeyed Gu Xiong's orders. They also charged towards Lu Ming. Stop the two of them together! Gu Bo mustered up his remaining strength, and led a few heavenly god realm elders to attack Gu Shang and Gu Ling. Both sides began a great battle. Although Gu Bo and the others were at a disadvantage, they managed to delay their movements. What are you doing? Gu Bo, you're treacherous. I'm going to lead the descendants of the ancient gods to glory. Why are you stopping me? You're treacherous and betraying your ancestors. Gu Xiong cursed like a mad dog. Gu Xiong, you've already gone completely insane. For your own selfish reasons, you're willing to sacrifice so many of our clansmen to fulfill your wish. You're the one who's rebelling, you're the one who's betraying your ancestors. Gu Bo shouted coldly. But Gu Xiong did not seem to hear it, and just kept cursing. At that moment, his body had already shriveled up. He had turned into a bag of bones, resembling a skeleton. His essence qi and essence blood had almost been completely absorbed. Even if the quantifying character formula stopped now, he was already a cripple. This was because the divine flame in his body had been completely extinguished. At the same time, the ancient divine flowers all over the mountain also completely withered. All the energy was absorbed by the quantifying formula and poured into Lu Ming's body. Heart of the ancient god, condense! In Lu Ming's sea of consciousness, Gu Mo shouted loudly. Lu Ming's heart had completely changed. It was filled with a dazzling red color, and was also filled with boundless energy, beating non-stop. Whoosh whoosh! Suddenly, a surge of extremely pure qi and blood gushed out from his heart. In an instant, it seeped into the depths of Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's divine body was rapidly transforming and improving at a shocking speed. The heart of the ancient god was successfully condensed. Roar! The moment the heart of the ancient god was successfully condensed, Lu Ming seemed to hear a loud roar coming from his heart as if it came from ancient times. It was as if he was looking at an incomparably huge ancient god rampaging through the universe. With a single punch, it could cause a planet to explode. At that moment, not only was Lu Ming's divine body improving rapidly, but even his cultivation was also rapidly improving. He was approaching the peak of the first-level true God realm at a shocking speed. Soon, his cultivation reached the peak of the first-level true God realm. Boom! A rumble erupted from his body. His cultivation had successfully broken through to the second-level true God realm. Furthermore, he was rapidly charging towards the peak of the second-level true God realm. Ah, why? On the altar, Gu Xiong let out a miserable scream. He knew that he had been completely defeated. He had already become a cripple, his breath hanging by a thread. The moment Gu Xiong was crippled, Gu Shang and Gu Ling's bodies shook violently and suddenly stopped. Originally, their eyes were blank, but at this moment, intelligence appeared. Gu Bo, stop! Gu Shang roared loudly. Gu Bo stopped and said joyfully, Gu Shang, you've recovered? I've recovered! Gu Shang nodded. His gaze swept the surroundings, and he sighed. Fortunately, I almost made a big mistake. Gu Xiong and Gu Luo! Gu Ling's gaze swept over the first elder, and the rest extremely coldly. Her figure moved, rushing towards the first elder, and smashing a palm down. Not good! The first elder was alarmed and hastily blocked, but how could he be Gu Ling's opponent? He was directly suppressed by a palm, vomiting large mouthfuls of blood. Gu Bo, Gu Shang, and the rest also charged over. The people following Gu Xiong were instantly suppressed. Why is it like this? The first elder was at a loss. In the end, his gaze fell on Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming's body was blood-red, and a wave of majesty was emitting from him. This majesty made all the ancient god descendants feel apprehensive. This was a suppression of bloodline. This meant that Lu Ming's bloodline was much denser than theirs. The ancient god's heart, he actually condensed the ancient god's heart. Gu Shang muttered to himself, filled with shock. It really is the ancient god's heart. I really didn't expect that after Gu Xiong's scheming, it would end up being a wedding dress for someone else's disciple, said Gu Bo with a smile. However, this kind of ending was already the best ending. The crisis of the ancient god descendants had finally passed. At this moment, Lu Ming's aura slowly stabilized, and the energy fluctuation on his body also disappeared. What a pity, I was just a little bit away from reaching the third-level true god realm. Lu Ming sighed. His cultivation was now at the peak second-level true god realm. Kid, you're still not satisfied after obtaining such a great opportunity. Most of the ancient god flower's energy was used to condense the ancient god's heart. Your cultivation has only increased a little. Moreover, your divine body has also improved by several times. You should be satisfied, Guemo said. Senior, what's the use of the ancient god's heart? Lu Ming asked. Condensing the ancient god's heart has already allowed you to possess a dense ancient god bloodline. The ancient god's heart will automatically absorb external energy to strengthen your divine body. In the future, even if you don't cultivate, your divine body will continue to grow stronger. Do you understand? Guemo said. You can grow stronger without cultivating? Lu Ming was dumbfounded. This ability was really heaven-defying. Chapter 2784. After knowing the function of the ancient god's heart, Lu Ming's heart was burning. If his divine body continued to strengthen, would he become as strong as the ancient god in the future? Brat, I have another piece of good news for you. Just now, I was constantly absorbing energy. There's still a lot of energy left in my body. Once I've refined it, I'll transfer it to you. Your cultivation will increase by another level, the quantifying formula said. Really? Lu Ming was about to laugh out loud. This time, although the process was very dangerous, the harvest was also very shocking. His cultivation had increased to the second level of true god realm, and he had condensed the ancient god's heart. His divine body was also several times stronger than before. With the current strength of his divine body, it was enough for him to cultivate the battle formula to increase his combat strength by 4 times. What a great reward! After calming himself down, Lu Ming looked around and finally fixed his gaze on the Great Elder. At this moment, the Great Elder was staring at Lu Ming with hatred. You don't have to look at me like that. Speaking of which, I have to thank you. If you didn't want to send me into the array, I wouldn't have been able to condense the ancient god's heart. Lu Ming smiled faintly. The Great Elder was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. Previously, Gu Xiong wanted to kill Lu Ming. He was the one who wanted to send Lu Ming into the array. He didn't expect that he would help Lu Ming and ruin their plan. Gu Xiong almost died from anger. He regretted not killing Lu Ming. If he had killed Lu Ming, it would have been great. He would have been the one to condense the ancient god's heart. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. It was too late to regret now. Rumble! At this moment, there was a sudden change. The place where the 8 valleys converged, along with the 8 valleys, suddenly trembled violently, and the earth shook violently. The ancient god flowers that covered the mountains had already withered. At this moment, the ancient god flowers turned into ashes and dissipated. However, the ground emitted a dazzling light. What's going on? What's going on? Many of the descendants of the ancient gods began to shout. Even Gu Xiong, Gu Bo, and the others were at a loss, not knowing what was going on. The trembling of the ground grew stronger, and the glow on the ground grew brighter. In fact, an incomparably terrifying aura burst out. It was filled with an ancient and majestic aura. The crowd felt as if a huge mountain was pressing down on them. Some of them even felt like vomiting blood. Retreat! Gu Bo roared and ordered the descendants of the ancient gods to retreat. Only after retreating far away did the pressure lessen. Senior Gu Bo, what's going on? Lu Ming stood beside Gu Bo and asked curiously. I don't know. The 8 Valleys Convergence Ground is a sacred place for the descendants of the ancient gods. Throughout history, they have always offered sacrifices to their ancestors here. However, this has never happened before. Gu Bo frowned. He had lived for a long time, but this was the first time he had encountered such a situation. Boom! Boom! The 8 Valleys Convergence Ground shook more and more violently. In the end, a huge beam of light shot up to the sky. Originally, there was a mysterious formation around the ancient god's mountain that shrouded it. This was also the reason why the ancient god's mountain could not be found by outsiders. However, at this moment, the beam of light shot up to the sky and broke the formation that shrouded the ancient god's mountain. Once the formation was broken, the ancient god's mountain was exposed. As for the light barrier, it shot straight into outer space. The beam of light was too bright. Even those standing on another planet outside the ancient god planet could see the beam of light, let alone the ancient god planet itself. At least half of the people on the ancient god planet saw the beam of light. Countless people looked in its direction. What is that? What a terrifying movement. Could it be that a peerless treasure has appeared? Let's go and have a look. In a flash, many people rushed towards the direction of the ancient god's mountain. At this moment, Lu Ming and the others were dumbfounded. This was because at the Light Valley Convergence Ground, a huge door slowly appeared. It was a huge bronze door that was tens of thousands of feet tall. It stood between heaven and earth, and there were ancient deities carved on it. Could this be the legendary ancient god door? Gu Bo seemed to have thought of something and roared in shock. His old body was trembling with excitement. Ancient god door. It must be the ancient god door. According to the legends, it is the ancient god door that leads to the ancient god world. I didn't expect the ancient god door to be hidden in the 8 Valleys Convergence Ground. Gu Shang and Gu Ling also shouted in excitement. Their eyes shone with a burning light. There was an ancient legend among the descendants of the ancient gods. According to the legend, the ancient god door led to the ancient god world. If one had the chance to enter the ancient god world, he would have the chance to become an ancient god and be invincible. How could they not be moved? The ancient god door that leads to the ancient god world? Lu Ming was shocked when he heard it. When the ancient god door appeared, it stood between heaven and earth, emitting a dazzling light. The ancient god door was made up of 2 bronze doors that were tightly shut. However, as time passed, the light on the ancient god door dimmed. In the end, the light disappeared, leaving only the bronze doors standing between heaven and earth. That vast oppressive aura also disappeared. Let's go and take a look. Gu Bo, Gu Shang, Gu Ling, and the others could not stay calm. They rushed towards the ancient god door. The other descendants of the ancient gods followed closely behind, leaving only a few people to guard the first elder and the others. Crack! Crack! At this moment, Qiuqiu, who had been in the form of a bracelet on Lu Ming's wrist, turned into a round ball and floated in the air. A pair of eyes appeared on its eyeballs, staring at the ancient god door. Its big mouth opened and closed in excitement. Little guy, what are you trying to do? Lu Ming was curious. Crack! Crack! Qiuqiu's big mouth opened and closed continuously. Its eyes were filled with greed as it stared at the ancient god door. You can't be thinking of eating that bronze door, right? Lu Ming speechlessly asked. He hadn't expected Qiuqiu to repeatedly nod. Lu Ming's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Little guy, don't act rashly. Lu Ming softly warned as he flew towards the ancient god door with Qiuqiu. Gu Bo and the others had already landed below the ancient god door. The ancient god door was too big. It was tens of thousands of meters tall and several thousand meters wide. When they stood below it, they were as small as ants. Gu Bo and the others tried to push the ancient god door, wanting to open it. However, it was like an ant trying to shake a tree. The ancient god door didn't budge. In the end, almost all the descendants of the ancient gods joined hands to push the ancient god door, but the result didn't change at all. Lu Ming also joined in, but it was also useless. Little guy, don't waste your time. This door is incomparably ancient and heavy. Moreover, there's a grand formation inscribed on it. You won't be able to open it, said Guemo. Chapter 2785. Lu Ming smiled bitterly and shook his head. He retreated a distance and did not continue to attack. Qiuqiu tried to rush out several times but was stopped by Lu Ming. After all, there were so many descendants of the ancient gods present, and he was afraid that Qiuqiu would cause a ruckus. Gu Bo and the rest tried all kinds of methods but to no avail. Swoosh! 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 At this moment, there were rays of light flying over from afar. It was as though there was a meteor shower in the sky. It was a spectacular sight. The rest of the people on the ancient god planet had finally arrived. Is this the ancient god's mountain? Didn't our territorial master go to look for the ancient god's mountain? Why did the ancient god's mountain appear on its own? What a big door! What's that? Let's go and take a look. One by one, they flew towards the ancient god's mountain and the bronze door. Get lost! Gu Bo shouted angrily. The aura of the heavenly god realm spread out and shocked these people, and they retreated. The ancient god planet was occupied by the territorial masters. The highest cultivation level of the territorial masters was peak true god, and most of them had fallen in the ancient god's mountain. Among these people, the highest cultivation level was not higher than rank 6 true god. Under the pressure of Gu Bo's aura, they naturally did not dare to act rashly. However, as time passed, more and more people came. The sky was densely packed and the number was immeasurable. Gu Bo sighed. With so many people, even if his cultivation level was high, he could not suppress them. Moreover, the news would spread quickly. When the major forces of the Qin Tian star field arrived, they would be even more powerless. In fact, the news had already spread. On the ancient god planet, there were not only natives but also disciples from the Qin Tian 13 sects like Lu Ming who had come to the ancient god planet to gain experience. They had already spread the news of the changes in the ancient god planet and the bronze door. Elder, what should we do now? Someone asked Gu Bo and the rest. Now that the ancient god's mountain had been completely occupied by others, there were people everywhere, and they could no longer suppress the situation. Let's leave this place and find another place to stay. This place is no longer suitable for living. Gu Bo sighed helplessly. The other ancient god descendants were also helpless. However, they knew that this place wasn't suitable for living. When the powerful forces of the Qin Tian star field arrived, they wouldn't be able to protect the ancient god's mountain. If they weren't careful, they might even be exterminated. Let's go, little friend Lu Ming. We're leaving. Take care of yourself. Gu Bo cupped his fists towards Lu Ming. Take care! Lu Ming nodded. Lu Ming, let's meet again if we have the chance. Gu Xing also came over to say goodbye. Although Lu Ming had brought Gu Xiong to the brink of death, Gu Xing didn't blame Lu Ming. She knew that Gu Xiong had only himself to blame for all of this. Not to mention, Lu Ming had saved most of the ancient god's descendants. Take care. We'll meet again if there's a chance. Lu Ming smiled faintly. After that, the descendants of the ancient gods all left and disappeared into the horizon. As soon as the ancient god descendants left, the crowd immediately flew towards the ancient god gate, wanting to open it. Of course, the ancient god gate wasn't something that could be opened with a large number of people. The crowd couldn't open it even after expending a tremendous amount of effort. At this time, Lu Ming also quietly approached the ancient god gate. Little guy, do whatever you want, but be careful. Lu Ming warned Qiuqiu. Crack! Qiuqiu darted out, opened its mouth wide, and actually bit down on the bronze door. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat as he watched nervously. Creak! Creak! Qiuqiu fiercely bit on the bronze gate, letting out an ear-piercing sound. Boom! The gate shuddered violently as a terrifying aura burst out from it. Ah, what's going on? Nestle! Many people were directly sent flying by this pressure. Not good! Lu Ming's expression also changed. Qiuqiu bit down even harder, biting with all its might. Its sharp teeth actually managed to bite into the bronze door. Creak! At this time, strands of lightning spread out from the bronze gate, emitting a terrifying energy fluctuation. Not good, Qiuqiu, quickly retreat! Lu Ming hurriedly shouted. Because those strands of lightning were spreading towards Qiuqiu. Crack! Qiuqiu exerted all its strength and bit off a small piece of bronze. It then frantically retreated, but it was already too late. A strand of lightning struck Qiuqiu's body, and Qiuqiu was directly sent flying. Qiuqiu! Lu Ming was greatly alarmed, and chased in the direction that Qiuqiu was sent flying. He saw Qiuqiu heavily smashing into the ground, and no longer moving. Lu Ming's heart was beating wildly, and he hurriedly ran over, only to find that Qiuqiu's body was completely black, as if it had been burnt. Lu Ming's heart sank. But in the next moment, Qiuqiu's round body rolled twice, and that big mouth appeared again, and crunched a few times. This guy was fine. Lu Ming was relieved. This guy, you're willing to throw away your life for food? Lu Ming picked up Qiuqiu and scolded with a smile. Qiuqiu turned into a bracelet and wrapped itself around Lu Ming's wrist. Its aura was very weak, and Qiuqiu had indeed been heavily injured after being struck by the bronze gate's lightning. Let's leave first, Lu Ming thought to himself, because there were already quite a few people looking at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's figure flickered, and he left the ancient god's mountain, arriving at a large mountain more than 100,000 miles away to observe the changes in the ancient god's mountain. More and more people gathered around the ancient god's mountain. A few days later, a big shot indeed arrived. The Qin Heavenly 13 Sects was the closest sect, and a terrifying figure had arrived. This person was shrouded in divine light, and emitted an incomparably terrifying pressure. Everyone was suppressed by this pressure, and they all frantically retreated, leaving the bronze gate. That figure stood alone in front of the bronze gate. Boom! That figure suddenly made his move. A terrifying divine light blasted towards the bronze gate, wanting to blast it open. Boom! Above the bronze gate, there was a violent explosion, but after the explosion, the bronze gate still didn't budge. Open for me! That figure shouted loudly. His aura was like a rainbow, and his divine power burned like flames. An even more terrifying aura erupted. Many people's bodies shook, and they vomited blood. They were almost crushed to death. Retreat, retreat! Quickly retreat! Countless people frantically retreated, terrified. What a terrifying aura! Even though he was more than 100,000 miles away, Lu Ming could feel an incomparably terrifying pressure pressing down on him. He could only retreat 100,000 miles before he felt better. Kid, that's a divine king! Gu Mo said indifferently. It's really a divine king! Lu Ming sucked in a breath of cold air. This was the first time he had seen a divine king make a move. The power was truly earth-shattering, and it was incomparably terrifying. If a heavenly god was an expert of the Qin heavenly star field, then a divine king was definitely an overlord of the Qin heavenly star field. Chapter 2786. A god king was much stronger than a heavenly god. When a god king raged, a planet would explode. Legend had it that a battle between multiple god kings could even destroy a massive planet with life. One could imagine how terrifying a god king was. Countless people stood in the distant void, watching the ancient god mountain from afar. Boom! That divine king attacked again, bombarding the bronze gate. Rumble! The bronze gate emitted a dazzling light, blocking the god king's attack. However, it also caused a terrifying tremor. Lu Ming and the others stood in the void, watching the ground of the ancient god planet tremble. Cracks even appeared on the ground, spreading into the distance. Countless people were shocked by the power of the god king. They instinctively retreated a distance, watching from afar. Boom! Boom! That god king kept retreating, but it was useless. He couldn't open the bronze gate. The bronze gate even emitted bolts of lightning that were as thick as mountains. They struck the god king, forcing him to retreat. What terrifying power! Seeing the power of the lightning, Lu Ming felt a lingering fear. The lightning that attacked Xiuqiu before didn't even have 1/10,000th of this power. Otherwise, no matter how strong Xiuqiu's vitality was, it would only end up turning into ashes. It seems like you can't do it alone. A voice came from the distant starry sky. When this voice first sounded, it was still in the starry sky outside the atmosphere of the ancient god planet. However, when the voice faded, a figure appeared near that god king. The aura that this figure emitted was also terrifying. Without a doubt, this was also a god king expert. You might not be able to open it. The god king snorted. You'll know if you try. The god king behind him said coldly and also attacked the ancient god gate. Terrifying tremors erupted, but the result was the same as before. The god kings behind him couldn't open the ancient god gate. As time passed, more and more experts descended upon this place. The important figures of the Qin Heavenly 13 sects arrived one after another. Even god kings kept arriving. Later on, the important figures of the three overlords and the Kongxian school sects all sent god kings. Later on, even the Iso race and the Scarlet Flame race sent important figures. Clearly, the appearance of the ancient god sect had completely alarmed the Qin Tian starfield. However, even with so many forces and so many experts, after many attempts, they still could not break open the door of the ancient god and enter the world behind it. There's a grand formation here. Only experts proficient in grand formations can open it. A god king spoke. Soon after, the news spread, and the experts from the Qin Tian starfield who were proficient in formations also rushed over. This formation is very complicated. It will take at least several decades to over 100 years to break it open. Finally, a formation master came to a conclusion. It still needs so many years. It seems that it will be impossible to open the bronze gate in a short period of time. I thought there would be a good show to watch. Let's come again in the future. Many people shook their heads and left the ancient god planet. It's time for me to leave. This trip can be considered a complete success. Lu Ming pondered for a while. Then, he left the ancient god planet and headed for the Kongxian school. After a long journey, Lu Ming returned to the Kongxian school. By now, the news of the ancient god planet had spread throughout the Qin Tian starfield. Many people in the Kongxian school were discussing this matter. However, as time passed, the doors still did not open, and the popularity slowly died down. In the Kongxian school, the discussion was more about the intersect grand competition. There were many outer and inner disciples in the Kongxian school. Therefore, the intersect grand competition would be held every once in a while. As long as one showed off their skills in the intersect grand competition, not only would they be famous, but they would also be rewarded handsomely. The intersect grand competition would be held in 3 years. Many people were already rubbing their palms together, eager to give it a try. However, Lu Ming was not interested in it at all. During this trip to the ancient god planet, a large group of territorial lords had died at his hands. Their storage rings had all fallen into Lu Ming's hands. Lu Ming had obtained a large number of treasures and divine gems. Therefore, Lu Ming did not care about the rewards of the intersect grand competition. If he had the time, he might as well cultivate. When he returned to his courtyard, he did not see Autumn Moon. Lu Ming guessed that Autumn Moon must be cultivating in the Divine Vein Tower or some other place. Lu Ming sat cross-legged in the courtyard, quietly comprehending the battle character formula. Now that his divine body had improved by several times, the battle character formula could increase his combat strength by 4 times. He could already cultivate. As expected, once his divine body improved, his comprehension of the battle character formula came naturally. Not long after, Lu Ming successfully broke through the bottleneck and cultivated his combat strength by 4 times. Boom! Lu Ming's body emitted a strong battle intent. His body contained a terrifying amount of energy. 4 times combat strength. Lu Ming's eyes shone brightly. Right now, his cultivation base was at the peak of the 2nd level of the True God realm. If he could increase his combat strength by 4 times, he would definitely be able to defeat, or even kill an opponent like Le Zhong. Unfortunately, the chance of triggering 4 times combat strength is still not high. Lu Ming pondered. After his breakthrough, Lu Ming had researched it, and found that the chance of triggering 4 times combat strength was only a few tens of %. He would need to trigger it dozens of times before he could succeed. However, Lu Ming was filled with confidence. As his comprehension of the battle character formula deepened, the chance of triggering 4 times combat strength would naturally increase. It would be the same as 2 times or 3 times combat strength, reaching a 100% success rate. Someone's coming! Lu Ming ended his cultivation. Suddenly, his expression changed. He sensed that someone was flying toward his courtyard. Lu Ming opened the courtyard's door and walked out. He saw 5 figures flying over. Wu Zifeng, Yu Linglong. 2 of them were Wu Zifeng and Yu Linglong. As for Wu Zifeng and Yu Linglong, there were 3 other people that Lu Ming did not recognize. Among the 3, there was clearly a young woman leading them. This woman was extremely beautiful. She could be said to be devastatingly beautiful. This woman... Lu Ming's heart shook. This woman's appearance was somewhat similar to Yu Xian's. Behind the woman were 2 young men. They were like flower escorts, protecting the young woman. Lu Ming, you finally returned from outside. Yu Linglong smiled and asked. I just returned. Do you need something from me? Lu Ming smiled. My cousin is looking for you. So when we heard that you've returned, we came to find you. Yu Linglong smiled. Your cousin? Lu Ming looked at the young woman. Unfathomable. This was Lu Ming's first impression of this young woman. This young woman's cultivation was unfathomable. Lu Ming was completely unable to see through her. Come, let me introduce you. This is my expression, Ouyang Qingxiang. She is my aunt Yu Xian's daughter. Yu Linglong said. She really is Yu Xian's daughter. Lu Ming's heart shook. When he saw Ouyang Qingxiang, Lu Ming felt that she was somewhat similar to Yu Xian. When Yu Linglong said that she was her cousin, Lu Ming had such a guess. Chapter 2787. Let me tell you something else. My cousin is the saintess of the Kongxian school. Linglong smiled. Saintess! This time, Lu Ming was really surprised. The Kongxian school had a total of 5 saints and 2 saintesses, all of whom were qualified to compete for the position of the patriarch. Unexpectedly, Ouyang Qingxiang in front of him was one of the 2 saintesses. Saintess Ouyang, it's an honor to meet you! Lu Ming clasped his fist and greeted. I've also heard of your name, Lu Ming. You entered the Kongxian school as the first place in the Qin Tian 13 sex assessment. When you entered the Kongxian school, your cultivation was only at the demigod realm. However, in just a few decades, you stepped into the true god realm and became an inner disciple. This cultivation speed is really shocking. Ouyang Qingxiang smiled. I was just lucky, just lucky. Lu Ming said a few modest words and changed the topic. I wonder why Saintess Ouyang is looking for me? I won't beat around the bush. I'm here to invite you to join my faction. What do you think? Ouyang Qingxiang said. As expected, Lu Ming curled his lips slightly. Ouyang Qingxiang really came to invite him to join her faction. However, Saintess Ouyang Qingxiang came personally. Her sincerity was not bad. Unfortunately, Lu Ming did not plan to join any faction. He also did not want to listen to others' orders. Saintess Ouyang, I'm afraid I have to disappoint you. I don't plan to join any faction for the time being, Lu Ming said. Don't want to join? Lu Ming, you have to think about it carefully. Saintess Ouyang was slightly stunned. She obviously did not expect that Lu Ming would reject her personally. That's right. Lu Ming, you have to think about it carefully. My cousin is such a beauty, and she's still single. Yu Linglong whispered as she winked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming speechlessly touched his nose and shook his head. Lu Ming appreciates Saintess Ouyang's good intentions, but Lu Ming really doesn't intend to join any faction. Brat, don't be ungrateful. The Holy Maiden has personally come to invite you. She has already given you a lot of face. Yet you have repeatedly rejected her. You really don't know what you're talking about. That's right. Does this brat not know his situation? Both the Great Heaven faction and Floating Light faction want to kill you. Do you know that our Saintess is inviting you at the risk of falling out with the Great Heaven faction and Floating Light faction? Do you understand? The 2 youths behind Ouyang Qingxiang couldn't bear it any longer and loudly berated. Both of you, shut up! Ouyang Qingxiang scolded, making the 2 youths shut up obediently. Lu Ming, if you don't want to agree, I won't make things difficult for you. Goodbye. Ouyang Qingxiang cupped her fists and said, Wait. At this moment, Lu Ming suddenly called out to Ouyang Qingxiang. Ouyang Qingxiang's eyes lit up, thinking that Lu Ming had changed his mind. Saintess Ouyang, although Lu Ming doesn't intend to join your faction, it's still possible if we work together, Lu Ming said. Work together? Ouyang Qingxiang was slightly stunned. That's right. Work together, let's work together. Lu Ming nodded his head once again. Brat! The 2 youths behind Ouyang Qingxiang couldn't hold back anymore. One of them shouted, Brat, who do you think you are? You dared to say that you want to work together with the Saintess? Do you really think you're some big shot? That's right. Our Saintess controls a faction with countless experts and countless resources. Who do you think you are? What qualifications do you have to work together with our Saintess? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? Ridiculous, simply ridiculous. The 2 youths looked at Lu Ming with disdain and contempt. You two stop talking. Ouyang Qingxiang glanced at the 2 youths with dissatisfaction. Lu Ming smiled faintly, too lazy to bother with the 2 youths. He looked at Ouyang Qingxiang and said, Saintess Ouyang, think about it carefully. Lu Ming's expression was calm, full of confidence. Ouyang Qingxiang revealed a pondering look. However, the 2 youths couldn't take it anymore. Arrogant and conceited. I want to see what qualifications you have to be so confident. What qualifications do you have to talk about working together with the Saintess? One of the youths roared and stepped out. A powerful aura erupted from his body as he raised his hand. Vigorous divine force condensed into a giant hand and pressed down on Lu Ming. Ouyang Qingxiang's eyes flickered, but she didn't stop him. She also wanted to see how strong Lu Ming was. Yu Linglong and Wu Zifeng wanted to stop him, but it was too late. 7th level True God Realm. This youth's cultivation was at the 7th level True God Realm. Moreover, he was a genius with great battle strength. A giant hand pressed down on Lu Ming. Swoosh! Lu Ming pointed his finger, and a gust of finger force, like a spear gleam, attacked the palm print. Puff! The palm was penetrated by the finger force and collapsed. You! The youth was shocked. He obviously didn't expect Lu Ming to break his moves so easily. Take another move of mine! Divine Horn Dragon Seal! The youth roared and activated a divine skill to the extreme. He blasted it toward Lu Ming with great power. However, the youth's cultivation was at the 7th level True God Realm. No matter how strong his battle strength was, it was nothing in Lu Ming's eyes. Now it's my turn! Lu Ming's cold voice resounded. A long spear appeared and swept out. Boom! When the large seal formed by the youth collided with the spear, it emitted a dazzling light. Then it collapsed. The spear didn't stop and pressed down on the youth. Bam! The youth was sent flying by the spear and coughed out blood. This battle strength! Ouyang Qingxiang's beautiful eyes were filled with shock. Lu Ming's battle strength was completely out of her expectations. A 2nd level True God Realm could defeat a 7th level True God Realm Supreme Talent. Such battle strength was terrifying. This guy has become even stronger. Even though Yu Linglong and Wu Zifeng knew how terrifying Lu Ming was, they couldn't help but sigh. The other youth behind Ouyang Qingxiang was almost scared to death. He stared at Lu Ming with a pale face. Do you want to try? Lu Ming looked at the youth and said coldly. The youth shuddered and broke out in cold sweat. How would he dare to step forward? His battle strength was almost on par with the previous youth. If he went up, he would be defeated by Lu Ming. Amazing, amazing! Brother Lu's battle strength is unparalleled. I have seen many geniuses, but I have never seen a supreme talent like Brother Lu! Ouyang Qingxiang exclaimed. Now, do I have the qualifications to cooperate with the Saintess? Lu Ming smiled. Of course I have the qualifications. If Brother Lu doesn't have the qualifications, then who does? Ouyang Qingxiang said. Although Lu Ming's current strength was strong, it wasn't in Ouyang Qingxiang's eyes. She valued Lu Ming's potential. With Lu Ming's talent, if he grew up, he would definitely have a place in the Kongxian school. It wasn't impossible for him to break through the heavenly god realm and become the 8th saint of the Kongxian school. Chapter 2788. However, I'm afraid that some of the supreme talents under your command will not be convinced and will object, Lu Ming said with a smile. R-A-N-E? Nah-com. How could that be? Ouyang Qingxiang smiled and turned to look at the two youths. Her face darkened as she said, Why aren't the two of you apologizing to Brother Lu? Her voice was cold, and it naturally emanated a dignified aura. The two young men's expressions were ugly. They lowered their heads and walked toward Lu Ming. They bowed and said, We were blind previously. Please be magnanimous and don't stoop to our level. It doesn't matter. Lu Ming waved his hand and said, Saintess Ouyang, let's work together. I believe that you won't regret your decision today. I never regret my actions. Ouyang Qingxiang smiled. They chatted for a while before Ouyang Qingxiang took her leave. Lu Ming, you're getting more and more powerful. We're no match for you now. Yu Linglong pouted. Your cultivations have surprised me as well, Li Qia said with a smile. Lu Ming looked at Yu Linglong and Wu Zifeng curiously. Their auras were extremely strong and they had clearly reached level 4 True God Realm. Back in the Yulong Mystery Realm, the two of them had just broken through to level 1 True God Realm. How many years had it been since then? The two of them had broken through to level 4 True God Realm. This cultivation speed was shocking. Lu Ming had the help of the quantifying character formula and a series of fortuitous encounters to reach his current cultivation level. He did not expect that Yu Linglong and Wu Zifeng's cultivation speed was not any slower than his. Some time ago, Zifeng and I went back to his hometown and underwent devilish cultivation. We thought that we could surpass you. I didn't expect you to be so abnormal, Yu Linglong said helplessly. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. It seemed that Wu Zifeng's background was really not simple. By the way, Lu Ming, the Kongxian School's intersect competition is about to begin. Are you going to participate? Yu Linglong asked. No, I'm not interested. Lu Ming shook his head. That's a pity. If you were to participate, I reckon everyone would be shocked. Yu Linglong's face was filled with pity. Both sides chatted for a while. Yu Linglong and Wu Zifeng left. Lu Ming went back to his room and continued to cultivate. The Sky Xian Sect's grand competition could be considered a grand occasion for the Sky Xian Sect, as it was a competition between the 7 holy sons and holy daughters. Every faction had many outer and inner disciples. In the intersect competition, whichever faction had the upper hand and which faction was stronger would play a crucial role in the future development of that faction. Some new disciples would make a choice according to the strength of their faction. It would even affect the views of some of the higher-ups in the sect. It would also have a great impact on the future competition for the position of the sect master. All the major factions attached great importance to it. Therefore, in the past few years, the prodigies of the various factions who went out rushed back to the Kongxian School to strengthen themselves and wait for the intersect competition. The Tenho Seiko faction and Fuko Seiko faction also temporarily put Lu Ming's matter aside and focused on preparing for the Kongxian School's intersect competition. Lu Ming did not care about what was happening outside. He was focused on cultivating. Time flew by and 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. The intersect competition was about to begin. It was worth mentioning that in these 3 years, Lu Ming's cultivation had improved again and reached the level 3 True God realm. When he was in the Ancient God's Mountain, Lu Ming had absorbed the energy of countless Ancient God flowers and condensed the Ancient God's heart. His cultivation had also increased to the peak level 2 True God realm, and was just 1 step away from the level 3 True God realm. After 3 years of cultivation, his cultivation had finally improved a step, and his battle prowess had also increased by a notch. Of course, his divine body was constantly improving under the nourishment of the Ancient God's heart. Although the speed was not fast, the effect would be shocking in the long run. The key was that he did not need to spend time cultivating and would naturally become stronger. This was the terrifying part of the Ancient God's heart. At this time, Yu Linglong and Wu Zifeng came to look for Lu Ming again. Lu Ming, are you really not going to participate in the intersect competition? Yu Linglong asked again. No, I'm not interested. Lu Ming shook his head. Then let's go and take a look. The experts from the 7 factions will all be there and many experts on the True God ranking list will participate. It will be very intense. I wasn't even born in the previous intersect competition, Yu Linglong said. The Kongxian School's intersect competition was not held at a fixed interval. Sometimes it would be 10,000 years and sometimes it would be hundreds of thousands of years. The last intersect competition had been held more than 80,000 years ago. The True God ranking list? Lu Ming's eyes flickered. As the name suggested, the True God ranking was a list of the most powerful people in the True God realm. However, it was completely different from the Empty God ranking list. The Empty God ranking list was a list in the Kongxian School that listed the most powerful Empty God realm experts in the Kongxian School. The True God ranking list was not only limited to the Kongxian School but also the Qing Tian 13 sects. On the True God ranking list, there were a total of 100 top experts in the True God realm from the Qing Tian 13 sects. Without a doubt, this ranking list had a huge influence in the Qing Tian star zone. Those who could be on the True God ranking list were the top experts in the True God realm. Lu Ming was also curious. How would his current combat strength compare to the top experts in the True God ranking list? All right, let's go and take a look. Lu Ming nodded. Then, he, Wu Zifeng, and Yu Linglong headed in the direction of the intersect competition. The intersect competition was located in between the outer and inner areas. There was a vast piece of land with a wide view. It was perfect for holding the intersect competition. In the middle of the open space, there was a huge fighting ring. At that moment, the fighting ring was surrounded by people. Lu Ming and the rest flew over and blended into the crowd. They did not attract much attention. "The Tianhong Saint is here!" Suddenly, someone called out. Everyone turned to look in the same direction. Lu Ming also looked over curiously. A group of people flew over. The leader was a young man in luxurious clothes. He had a noble aura and a confident smile on his face. It was as if he was in control of everything. The people around him were all elites. They were all supreme talents from the Tenho Seiko faction. "Is this the Tianhong Saint?" A cold light flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. Le Jeune was from the Tenho Seiko faction. His feud with the Tenho Seiko faction was getting deeper. He felt that he would have to fight with the Tianhong Saint sooner or later. "Fuko Seiko is here too!" Suddenly, someone shouted. Sure enough, another group of people flew over from another direction. The leader was a young man in a white shirt and pants. His long hair fluttered in the wind and he looked handsome. This person had an extraordinary aura. He was Fuko Seiko. The people beside Fuko Seiko were all supreme talents. Lu Ming saw Huang Wen among them. Chapter 2789. The Tenho Seiko faction and Fuko Seiko faction faced each other from a distance. Strong battle intent filled the air. Renina calmed. The grand competition hadn't started yet, but the atmosphere was already tense. "Cousin is here!" Yu Linglong shouted happily. "Saintess Qingxiang is here!" Then, someone shouted. Everyone looked into the distance at the same time, especially the male disciples. Their eyes lit up. A group of people flew over from afar. Most of them were female disciples, and only a few of them were male disciples. Many of the female disciples were outstanding beauties. No wonder many of the male disciples' eyes lit up. The person leading the group was Ouyang Qingxiang. "Is that Saintess Qingxiang? She's indeed outstanding. She's so beautiful. She's really a peerless beauty." Many of the outer disciples had never seen Ouyang Qingxiang before, and their eyes lit up at this moment. The saint of Tianhong and Fuko Seiko also looked at Ouyang Qingxiang with burning flames in their eyes. Swoosh! 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 More figures flew over from afar. The other saints and saintesses also arrived one by one. The saint of Jixia led the people from his faction. The Flaming Sky Saint Sun had led the Flaming Sky Saint Sun's faction here. The Saintess Xuetan also led the people from her faction. 6 of the 7 saints and saintesses from the Kongxian school arrived quickly. Without a doubt, they were all peerless geniuses with unfathomable strength. There's also the Paragon Saint. I wonder if he will come personally this time? It's hard to say. The Paragon Holy Sun is the strongest among all the Holy Sons. The Paragon Holy Sons faction is also the strongest among all the Holy Sons. The Paragon Holy Sun did not appear personally in the previous grand competition. I hope the Paragon Saint will appear personally. He's my idol. Many people were discussing. Among the 7 saints and saintesses from the Kongxian school, the Paragon Saint was undoubtedly the strongest. He was also the one who was most likely to inherit the position of the sect leader in the future. Therefore, the Paragon Saints faction was also the most powerful. In the previous sect grand competition, the Paragon Saint did not appear, but the Paragon Saints faction still came out on top, suppressing the factions of the other saints and saintesses. "Look, the Paragon Saints people are here!" Someone shouted. A group of people flew over from the north. There were many of them, far more than the other saints' sons and saintesses. "That is the Paragon Saint? It really is the Paragon Saint. The Paragon Saint has personally appeared!" Someone cried out in surprise and excitement. "Paragon Saint!" Lu Ming's gaze also looked over. A large group of people flew over, but Lu Ming noticed a young man in the middle with a glance. The young man was tall and sturdy. His eyes were like stars, and his face was chiseled like a knife. He was full of dignity, and had an aura of supremacy. Needless to say, Lu Ming knew that this person must be the Paragon Saint. When the Paragon Saint arrived, the Tianhong Saint, Fuko Seiko, Ouyang Qingxiang, and the others' faces became serious, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. The people from the Paragon Saint's faction stood at the side and waited silently. After a while, figures flew out from the depths of the inner sect area. The sect leader of the Kongxian school, Long Haoshan, had arrived. Some inner sect elders had also arrived. Now that most of the people have arrived, I announce that the sect grand competition has officially begun. Like the previous competitions, the outer sect disciples will compete on the stage. The higher the ranking, the better the rewards. Now, for the outer sect disciples who have signed up, I will draw lots to decide their opponents. An inner sect elder landed on the stage and announced the rules of the competition. Then, he drew lots to start the competition. First, the outer sect disciples would fight, and the fierce battle began. However, Lu Ming was not very interested in the competition between the outer sect disciples. Moreover, there were not many experts who were worthy of his attention. For example, Yemo, Feng Yuanao, Feng Luozi, and the others who were in the top 10 of the empty god list had already broken through to the true god realm and entered the inner sect. Currently, there were not many talents in the outer sect. However, many people were still watching the competition seriously, especially those who were from the 7 Holy Sons and Holy Daughters factions. They were looking for the geniuses in the outer sect who had not joined any factions so that they could invite them. The competition between the outer sect disciples lasted for half a month before it ended. Then, it was the competition between the inner sect disciples. The competition between the inner sect disciples was the real highlight and attracted the attention of the audience. Of course, not all inner sect disciples were required to participate. The rules stated that only true gods could participate. Those who had reached the heavenly god realm did not need to participate because there were too few of them, and they were too powerful. For the competition between the true gods, all the factions sent their true god realm experts. It was indeed exciting. Lu Ming was also dazzled by the competition. There were different races, different divine skills, and even different secret skills. They were all extraordinarily powerful. However, on the whole, it was still the Supreme Holy Sons faction that dominated the competition. In the end, all the factions sent out their top experts on the True God list. There were only a total of 100 people on the True God list. Divided among the Qin Tian 13 sects, there were less than 10 people in each sect. Moreover, the number of people on the True God list had always been dominated by the 3 overlords. In the Kongxian school, there were a total of 8 people on the True God list. These 8 people were all from the 7 Holy Sons and Holy Daughters factions. The other 6 Holy Sons and Holy Daughters each had 1 person, while the Supreme Holy Sons faction had 2 people. Boom! Boom! In the fighting ring, the 2 top experts on the True God list were fighting fiercely, constantly colliding with each other. The experts on the True God list are indeed powerful. Lu Ming watched carefully and sighed in his heart. The fighting strength of the 2 people in the fighting ring was above Lu Zhong's. One should know that Lu Zhong had been at the peak of the True God realm for many years. He had cultivated several divine skills to the peak of the 4th stage and had mastered royal-grade divine power. His fighting strength was strong. However, both of them were stronger than Lu Zhong. The True God list listed the most powerful people in the True God realm, and it was not just for show. One of them was from the Tenho Seiko faction, while the other was from the Holy Sun Ji Xia's faction. The 2 of them exchanged a few hundred blows, and in the end, the expert from the Tenho Seiko faction won and defeated his opponent. The Tianhong Saint smiled, while the Holy Sun Ji Xia's face was gloomy. The competition continued, and it had reached the final stage. It was a clash between the experts on the True God list, and every match was very exciting. After a few more days, the competition finally ended. This time, it was still the Supreme Holy Sons faction that won the first place. In particular, there was one person in the Supreme Holy Sons faction who was extremely powerful. He was ranked 6th on the True God list. Most of the top 10 on the True God list were occupied by the 3 overlords. The fact that he was ranked 6th on the True God list showed how powerful he was. This person was the #1 expert in the True God realm in the Confrontations school. There was no doubt that the Supreme Holy Sons faction would win the first place. Chapter 2790. The competition has ended. An R A N E N A C O M. After this battle, the prestige of the Paragon Saints faction naturally rose to a whole new level. No one could compare to them. The other saints and saintesses looked solemn. If this continued, the Paragon Saint would become the next sect leader. I must obtain that item. That way, I'll be able to contend against the Paragon Saint. The Tianhong Saint clenched his fists. All right, I hereby announce the end of the sect tournament. The Confrontations School's sect leader Long Zhoushan's voice reverberated throughout the area. He paused for a moment before continuing. However, I have another big announcement to make today. There's another big announcement? Many people were taken aback and revealed curious expressions. Most of the inner elders were also curious. Obviously, they did not know what Long Zhoushan was going to announce. Today, I am going to confer a new saint. Long Zhoushan's voice rang out. What? A new holy son? The saint is going to be conferred. This is a big deal. But there hasn't been anyone suitable recently. That's right. The only suitable candidate is the second in command of the Paragon Saints faction. Is he going to be independent? Long Zhoushan's words caused an uproar in the crowd. Everyone was guessing who the new saint would be. It was not easy to be promoted to a saint. First, one's cultivation had to be at the heavenly God realm. Moreover, the divine force that one could control had to be at least of the divine grade. Only by meeting these 2 conditions would one be qualified. Now, there was only one person who met these 2 conditions. That person was the second in command of the Paragon Saints faction. This person was also a peerless genius. Back then, he had the chance to be conferred the title of saint. However, he gave up the title and sided with the Paragon Saint. This had caused a huge uproar back then. At the scene, the 7 saints and saintesses narrowed their eyes and frowned. There was going to be an 8th saint. The conferment of a saint was a big deal. It meant that they would be more competitive. Moreover, every new saint would have a huge impact on the current situation. Everyone was guessing who the Holy Son of Dragon Mountain would be. However, they were not confident. Then, everyone looked at Long Zhoushan, waiting for his answer. Long Zhoushan stood high up in the air, his eyes scanned the surroundings and finally landed on Lu Ming. He shouted, "The Holy Prince that I want to confer the title of Holy Prince is him, Lu Ming." Long Zhoushan pointed at Lu Ming. Everyone's eyes turned to Lu Ming. Then, the scene fell into a dead silence. Lu Ming was also dumbfounded. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that the new Holy Son of Dragon Mountain would be him. Originally, he was just like everyone else, curious to know who this newly conferred Holy Son was. He didn't expect it to be him. For a moment, he couldn't wrap his head around it. Lu Ming, this is the mission I'm giving you. You must accept the position of Holy Son. Lu Ming heard the voice of Long Zhoushan. What the hell is this old man doing? Lu Ming finally calmed down, his mind racing. He didn't think that Long Zhoushan had good intentions. This old man had cast the nether dragon blood curse in his body. He definitely didn't have good intentions. Lu Ming, you've become a Holy Son! Awesome! Awesome, brother! Yu Linglong and Wu Zifeng were also dumbfounded. They couldn't come to their senses for a long time. It's him. The Holy Son that the sect master wants to confer is him? Everyone stared at Lu Ming, dumbfounded. The point is, who is he? That's right. I've never seen him before. Many people exclaimed. After all, Lu Ming had only joined the Confrontations school for a few decades. Many people had been in seclusion for hundreds or thousands of years. Most people had never seen Lu Ming before. It's him. I know him. He just joined the school a few decades ago. What? He was conferred the Holy Sun when he just joined the school a few decades ago? You must be kidding. Sure, lower your voice. Be careful not to let the sect master hear you. But this lad, how is he qualified to be a Holy Sun? There was an uproar at the scene. Lu Ming, who had just joined the school a few decades ago, was actually conferred the title of Holy Sun. What was going on? It's this lad. The Tianhong Holy Sun, Fuko Seiko, and the rest looked at Lu Ming like swords. Sect Master, I don't think this is appropriate. At this moment, an elder walked out and cupped his fists at Long Haoshan. What's wrong? Long Haoshan said lightly. Lu Ming has just joined the school a few decades ago. His current cultivation level has only broken through to the true God realm not long ago. No matter how you look at it, he's not qualified to be conferred the title of Holy Sun, the elder said. This elder was an inner sect elder and Ing Tsung's master. He belonged to the Tenho Seiko faction. Ing Tsung, who was ranked 4th on the empty god list, had been secretly taken in as a disciple by this elder. Later on, he was killed by Lu Ming in the Nether Dragon's secret territory. Ing Tsung had always hated Lu Ming. Since Long Haoshan wanted to confer the title of Holy Sun to Lu Ming, he naturally had to step out to oppose it. That's right, Sect Master. This must not be done. Following that, a few other inner sect elders stepped out to oppose it. Obviously, these inner sect elders belonged to the various factions of the Holy Sons and Holy Daughters. Are you doubting me? Long Haoshan said lightly, but there was a terrifying majesty in his voice. A few inner sect elders jumped in fright and hurriedly said, We're not doubting you, Sect Master. It's just that the conferment of a Holy Sun is a big matter. Sect Master, you must consider it carefully. That's right, Sect Master. The Holy Sons and Holy Daughters are all peerless geniuses. Not everyone is suitable and qualified. The Tianhong Holy Sun stepped out and bowed to Long Haoshan. Tianhong is right. To be a Holy Sun, one must first fulfill 2 conditions. First, one must possess holy divine power. Second, one must be a heavenly god. This Lu Ming is only a true god. How can he be qualified to be a Holy Sun? Sect Master, please retract your decision. Fuko Seiko stepped out and cupped her fists. Long Haoshan furrowed his brows. The Kongxian school's Holy Sons and Holy Daughters had a higher status than the inner sect elders. The Holy Sons and Holy Daughters were all peerless geniuses. If there were no accidents, they would enter the God-King realm in the future and become the overlord of a region. Their words carried more weight than the inner sect elders. Following that, the Holy Son of Jixia, the Holy Son of Yenkong, and the Holy Daughter of Xuetan all spoke up to persuade Long Haoshan to retract his decision. Among the 7 Holy Sons and Holy Daughters, only 2 of them remained silent. One of them was the Paragon Holy Sun. He only looked at Lu Ming curiously. Light flashed in his eyes, but he did not say anything. As for Ouyang Qingxiang, she naturally would not say anything. She and Lu Ming were partners. If Lu Ming could become a Holy Sun, it would be of great help to her. She even hoped that Lu Ming would become a Holy Sun. Chapter 2791. Lu Ming watched quietly, not saying a word. He was pondering over Long Zhoushan's motive. Was Long Zhoushan trying to push him to the heart of the struggle, giving him pressure so that he could improve faster and do things for him? Lu Ming felt that this was the most likely reason. Are you all doubting this seat's foresight? Long Zhoushan said indifferently, his voice cold. Big Sky's Holy Sun, Fuko Seiko, and the rest did not say anything, but their expressions said it all. They objected. All right, since that's the case, this seat will give you all a chance. Long Zhoushan's gaze turned sharp as he said. All of you can send out true God realm experts to challenge Lu Ming. If any of you can defeat Lu Ming, this seat will retract my order and cancel the conferment. If no true God realm expert can defeat Lu Ming, then Lu Ming will become the new Holy Prince. Do you all have any objections? Long Zhoushan's words shocked many people. All of the true God realm experts from the various factions could challenge Lu Ming. If they won, Lu Ming would not be able to become the Holy Prince. What is this Lu Ming's cultivation? Someone quickly asked. I saw it, he's a third-stage true God realm expert. Someone spoke. Those with higher cultivation than Lu Ming could see Lu Ming's cultivation with a single glance. What, a third-stage true God realm expert? His cultivation is so low, any true God realm expert can defeat him. Yeah, strange, why did the sect leader raise such a condition? This Lu Ming definitely won't be able to win. Strange. Many people were puzzled. Long Zhoushan seemed to want to confer the title of Holy Prince to Lu Ming, but raising such a condition meant that he didn't want Lu Ming to be the Holy Prince. No one thought that a third-stage true God realm expert could defeat the true God realm experts from the 7 factions. What a joke, a third-stage true God realm expert was just a low-level true God realm expert. How could he compete with the mid-level and high-level true gods? Especially the experts from the 7 factions. Those existences could pinch Lu Ming to death with one finger. There was no comparison at all. The Big Sky's holy son, Fuko Seiko, and the others' eyes lit up. Although they knew that Lu Ming's combat power was strong, there was a limit to his combat power. It was impossible for him to be a match for those high-level real gods. In their eyes, Long Zhoushan was giving them a way out. Zhoushan's suggestion. Me too. The Great Sky Hong Saint Sun and the Floating Light Saint Sun immediately expressed their stance. Following that, the other saints and saintesses agreed one after another. Long Haoshan's gaze landed on Lu Ming. Lu Ming said loudly. Since it had come to this point, it was obvious that Long Zhoushan wanted him to accept the Holy Sun's position. Lu Ming wasn't someone who was afraid of trouble. Nestle, this guy really dares to accept the challenge. He's not afraid of death. Even if he doesn't die, he'll be tortured. There's a good show to watch. Many people sneered, waiting to watch a good show. Lu Ming, do your best. I hope you can be promoted to the Holy Sun position. Yu Linglong waved her fist and cheered for Lu Ming. Brother Lu, you can do it. Wu Zifeng also patted Lu Ming's shoulder. Previously, they had seen Lu Ming suppress Ouyang Qingxiang's 2 subordinates. His combat power was extremely strong. If Lu Ming were to strike, he might have a chance of winning. Sect leader, can we fight to the death? The Big Sky's holy son asked, his eyes filled with cold killing intent. Since you want to fight, let's fight to the death, Long Zhoushan said. Regardless of life or death, it meant that they could kill. This kid is finished. Many people showed pity, thinking that Lu Ming was dead meat. I'll fight with this kid, a voice sounded. A young man from Fuko Seiko's faction stepped down and landed on the fighting stage. It's Huangwen. Huangwen is going to fight, someone shouted. That's right. That person was Huangwen. Huangwen is at the 8th level True God realm. Dealing with a mere 3rd level True God, the moment they take action, it's an 8th level True God. This is making a mountain out of a molehill. He's making a mountain out of a molehill. However, I heard that Huangwen has a grudge against Lu Ming. That's why he's fighting. I see. He's going to seize the opportunity to kill Lu Ming. Many people discussed. Brother, kill him. Kill him for me. Ha! Huang Wu, who was in the crowd, roared in his heart. He could already see the scene of Huangwen killing Lu Ming. Boom! Huangwen landed on the fighting stage and exuded a powerful aura that pressed down on Lu Ming. Kid, how do you want to die? Say it. Huangwen's cold voice sounded. He was confident in himself. He was also a genius and his cultivation had reached level 8 True God. Dealing with a level 3 True God was a piece of cake. Unfortunately, he didn't know that 2 geniuses from Fuko Seiko's faction had already died in Lu Ming's hands. He also didn't know that Le Zhong had also died in Lu Ming's hands. They only knew that Lu Ming had gone out and returned safely. They didn't know that those geniuses had already been killed by Lu Ming. They only thought that those geniuses couldn't find Lu Ming. If Huang Wen knew that those geniuses had already been killed by Lu Ming, he wouldn't be so confident. You talk too much nonsense. Make your move. I'll give you the last chance, Lu Ming said indifferently. Boasting shamelessly. Surging wave fist! Huang Wen shouted coldly and threw a punch at Lu Ming. Rumbling sounds came from the sky when the punch was thrown. It was like 10,000 layers of giant waves that surged toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's face was calm. He condensed a long spear with divine force in his palm. 5 divine flames burned fiercely and boundless divine force gathered in the long spear. He swept the spear out. Rumble! A huge spear intent was fired into the sky, colliding with Huang Wen's 10,000 layered fists, resulting in a shocking explosion. Then, Huang Wen's fist force trembled and was crushed by the spear light. Huang Wen's face changed drastically and he retreated to the edge of the fighting stage before stopping. Many people were dumbfounded as if they had seen a ghost. This situation was completely different from what they had expected. They expected Huang Wen to crush Lu Ming, but they didn't expect Lu Ming to push Huang Wen back with a single spear. How could a level 3 true god be so strong? Damn it! Huang Wen roared in his heart, and his face turned gloomy. Lu Ming's combat strength had also exceeded his expectations. That's all you've got? If you have any divine skills that you haven't used, use them quickly. This is your last chance, Lu Ming said indifferently with a look of disdain. You're courting death. I'll let you see my true strength. Surging wave sword art! Huang Wen roared and took out a battle sword. He exploded with all his strength and charged toward Lu Ming. With a slash, 10,000 layers of sword waves appeared in the void and surged toward Lu Ming. This was Huang Wen's trump card and it was extremely powerful. If he used it with his strength, an ordinary level 9 true god would be killed by him. Chapter 2792. Third Strike of Annihilation, Sky Piercer. Lu Ming doubled his combat strength and used the first move of the Third Strike of Annihilation, Sky Piercer. A dazzling spear radiance shot up to the sky. Bang! 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 The 10,000 saber waves that Huang Wen sent out crumbled one after another. Finally, the spear radiance rushed past Huang Wen and clashed with him. In the next moment, all the energy fluctuations disappeared. The long spear in Lu Ming's hand also disappeared. Lu Ming landed on the fighting stage expressionlessly. As for Huang Wen, his eyes were wide open and his face was filled with disbelief. There was a bloody hole in between his eyebrows. The light in his eyes quickly disappeared, and so did his life aura. Plop! Huang Wen fell on the fighting stage, no longer showing any signs of life. Huang Wen was dead. Most of the people at the scene were dumbfounded. Huang Wen was killed by Lu Ming. This was out of everyone's expectations. A 3rd-level true god had killed an 8th-level true god genius. This was too exaggerated. Demon! It turns out that Lu Ming is a demon. He's too abnormal. No wonder the sect master conferred him the title of Holy Sun. His combat strength is so terrifying. Many people mumbled to themselves. They finally knew why Dragon Zhoushan had conferred Lu Ming the title of Holy Sun. Lu Ming was a freak. Without a doubt, the divine power that he controlled was definitely above the sacred grade. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to be so powerful. When he became a heaven god and the son of saint, it would be a sure thing. Damn it! Fuko Seiko's eyes were cold. Huang Wen's death meant that he had lost one of his generals. Big brother! Huang Wu screamed in the crowd. His face was as pale as snow, and his face was filled with fear. When he was in the Kongxian school's outer area, he could get whatever he wanted because of his big brother, Huang Wen. Now that Huang Wen was dead, who could he rely on in the future? He knew that he would have a hard time in the future. Clean up the fighting stage! Dragon Zhoushan ordered. Immediately, someone went down and took away Huang Wen's body. Who else wants to fight? Lu Ming looked at the people of the 7 factions. Moing, go and kill him! The Tianhong saint instructed a youth behind him. This brat won't live. Lin Ku, a black-robed youth behind the Tianhong divine son, stepped down and landed on the fighting ring. It's him, Demon Shadow! The Tianhong saint sent this person directly. Looks like he's determined to win. Many people were slightly surprised. In the sect competition previously, Emoing had displayed shocking power. Although he was not as good as the top experts on the real god ranking list, he was not too far off. Mo Ying's cultivation was level 9 true god. Brat, your strength is indeed strong. Being able to kill Huangwen at the 3rd level of true god realm has indeed surprised me. However, your life ends here. Mo Ying said coldly. Huangwen said the same thing before, and then he died. Lu Ming simply retorted, causing Demon Shadow's complexion to sink. Don't compare me with that trash. Kill! Mo Ying shouted and charged toward Lu Ming. However, when he was halfway there, he suddenly disappeared. Speed-type divine skill? No, this is a secret skill. Lu Ming's gaze flickered. A long spear appeared in his hand and swept in all directions. The spear radiance crushed through, but did not find any trace of Mo Ying. Swoosh! Suddenly, a sharp whistling sound came from behind Lu Ming. Mo Ying had launched an attack on him. Unknowingly, Mo Ying had already arrived behind Lu Ming. Get lost! Lu Ming shouted and his divine power gushed out like waves. With a wave of his hand, dozens of spear radiances pierced in all directions. Dang! In one of the directions, an explosion rang out, and a figure was sent flying. It's useless. Die! Mo Ying's figure flickered continuously. In an instant, hundreds of figures appeared on the fighting ring and circled around Lu Ming. From time to time, a figure rushed toward Lu Ming, but they were all repelled by Lu Ming. You don't seem to be able to defeat me. Lu Ming sneered. Is that so? Suddenly, the hundreds of figures stopped at the same time and gathered into one. My arrangement is complete. Lu Ming, go to hell. Demon God Ghost Curse. Mo Ying shouted coldly. His body emitted a thick black aura. His hands were constantly forming seals. In the next moment, a burst of energy suddenly erupted from Lu Ming's body. This energy was extremely evil. No one knew when it had rushed into Lu Ming's body. Now that it had erupted, it formed many black and ferocious ghosts. They roared in Lu Ming's body, wanting to devour Lu Ming's flesh and blood. Mo Ying has planted a demon god ghost curse. This kid is dead for sure. The Tianhong saint sneered. Fuko Seiko, the Jixia saint, and the others watched coldly. Lu Ming. Yu Linglong and Wu Zifeng couldn't help but worry. Ha ha ha, Lu Ming, go to hell. Mo Ying laughed maniacally. Almost no one in the true god realm could break the demon god ghost curse that he had planted. Even the experts on the true god ranking wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Was it planted when we clashed? Lu Ming muttered. Previously, Lu Ming had continuously clashed with the demon god. Every time they clashed, Lu Ming felt a weak energy rush into his body. Because that energy wasn't strong, Lu Ming didn't pay much attention to it. Now that he thought about it, it must have been some demon god ghost curse. This demon god ghost curse was similar to the nether dragon blood curse in the Dragon Mountain. However, its power was worlds apart. Sovereign. With a thought, Lu Ming unleashed his sovereign divine power and enveloped the demon god ghost curse. Sizzle. After being enveloped by the sovereign divine power, the demon god ghost shadows were like ice in front of fire. They immediately sizzled and quickly dissipated. How is this possible? How can you break my demon god ghost curse? Mo Ying suddenly yelled in disbelief. You're embarrassing yourself with such petty tricks, Lu Ming said indifferently. His body flickered as he executed the 9 heavens rock art and charged at Mo Ying. Even if you break my demon god ghost curse, you can't kill me! Mo Ying roared, his eyes filled with malevolence. He turned into shadows and filled the fighting stage. Is that so? Lu Ming's figure suddenly landed on the fighting ring. A gust of extremely cold divine power spread out from his feet. In an instant, it covered the entire fighting ring and sealed it in ice. In an instant, the fighting stage turned into a world of ice. Mo Ying's body stiffened. His feet were sealed in ice. The hundreds of shadows on the fighting stage also disappeared. This is absolute frost divine power. How did this kid cultivate absolute frost divine power? Has he already cultivated the absolute frost divine art to its peak? But he only joined the sect a few decades ago. Many of the inner elders were shocked. The divine power that Lu Ming used earlier wasn't absolute frost divine power. Could it be that Lu Ming cultivated some kind of secret technique that concealed the divine power's attribute? Even so, how could Lu Ming cultivate absolute frost divine power in just a few decades? Chapter 2793. Could it be? Many people looked at Long Haoshan and wondered what was the relationship between Lu Ming and Long Haoshan. Could it be that Long Haoshan had already taught Lu Ming the frost divine art? Otherwise, they wouldn't believe that Lu Ming could reach the peak of the frost divine art in just a few decades. There were also people in Kongxian's school who had reached the peak of the frost divine art and successfully cultivated the frost divine power. However, it required great talent and a long time. What they didn't know was that Long Haoshan was also shocked. This brat can actually control the frost divine power. Long Haoshan was shocked. He knew that Lu Ming controlled the divine power of the sovereign realm. Now, he could actually use the frost divine power. Great! The stronger this brat is, the more likely it is to succeed. Long Haoshan's eyes lit up. On the battle stage, Mo Ying was terrified. He tried his best to break free from the ice that had sealed him. However, Lu Ming wouldn't give him such a chance. Lu Ming moved and appeared in front of the demonic shadow. His cold gaze made the demonic shadow shudder and break out in a cold sweat. I admit defeat! I admit defeat! Mo Ying shouted crazily. Did I allow you to admit defeat? Lu Ming said indifferently. He stabbed out with his spear and killed Mo Ying. CSISI, many people gasped in shock. Mo Ying was dead. Huang Wen couldn't compare to Mo Ying. He was very strong and it was obvious in the sect competition. However, he was still killed by Lu Ming. Lu Ming's strength was shocking. Lu Ming, you are courting death! At this moment, the great Hong Saint was furious. He released a terrifying aura towards Lu Ming. He didn't hide his cold killing intent. Great Hong, what are you trying to do? Ouyang Qingxiang also released her aura and blocked the Great Hong Saint's aura. What am I trying to do? Didn't you see that Mo Ying had already admitted defeat? He already admitted defeat, but this brat still killed him. How audacious! I'll kill him right now! The heavenly Hong Saint said angrily. Haha, what a joke! Before the battle started, they only said that regardless of life and death, they didn't say that they couldn't kill if they admitted defeat. Lu Ming said indifferently. You quibble. The Tianhong Saint was enraged, and a terrifying killing intent erupted from his body. However, Lu Ming was right. Before the battle started, he had indeed only said that regardless of life or death, but he did not say that he could not kill as long as he admitted defeat. Done! At this moment, Long Haoshan waved his sleeves and said, Just now, I didn't say that you can't kill if you admit defeat. Now I'll say it. In the following battles, as long as you admit defeat, you must stop. Upon seeing that Long Haoshan had spoken, the great sky sage Sun was also helpless. He could only glare icily at Lu Ming. The murderous intent in his eyes intensified. Saint, let me kill this brat! Another youth stepped out from behind the Tianhong Saint. Seeing this youth, the great sky sage Sun nodded and said, All right, let's end this quickly. Don't give that brat a chance to admit defeat. Clearly, the great sky sage Sun was very confident in this youth. Don't worry, Saint. He won't have a chance to admit defeat, the youth said coldly. In a flash, he landed on the fighting ring. Shui Yu, it's Shui Yu! When the youth landed on the fighting ring, many people were shocked. This was because Shui Yu was an expert on the True God ranking board. He was one of the 8 experts from the Kongxian school who were ranked on the True God ranking board. He was also the strongest True God realm expert under the Tenho Seiko faction. Lu Ming is going to battle with Xueyu. I wonder who will win. If Lu Ming can defeat Xueyu, it will be a miracle for him to be ranked on the True God ranking board as a level 3 True God. That's right. Xueyu is ranked 87th on the True God ranking board, but his combat strength is not something that Mo can compare to. Many people were looking forward to this battle. Many of them were already guessing the outcome of this battle. An expert on the True God ranking board? Come on! Lu Ming's eyes were filled with a strong desire to battle. Although he had seen the battle between the experts on the True God ranking board, watching and fighting were 2 different things. Swoosh! Suddenly, Xueyu moved. However, he did not charge toward Lu Ming. Instead, he soared into the sky. In midair, Xueyu's body emitted a crimson light. Xueyu barrier! Xueyu roared. With a push of his hands, a layer of crimson light shrouded the entire fighting ring. Xueyu barrier was a secret skill that Xueyu had cultivated. It was extremely powerful. As soon as he attacked, he used his unique skill and did not give Lu Ming a chance to fight back. Kill! Xueyu shouted. In the Xueyu barrier, boundless crimson sword light suddenly appeared and slashed toward Lu Ming. What can a barrier do to me? Kill! Lu Ming roared and activated the 9-layered crimson gold armor. He performed the 9 heavens rock technique and soared into the sky. Streaks of spear light burst out from his hands. Boom! 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 The spear light and crimson sword light collided with each other constantly, erupting into earth-shattering roars. Why is my divine power being depleted so severely? Suddenly, Lu Ming frowned. He could feel his divine power depleting rapidly. He was using the same move, but his divine power was depleting at a much faster rate than before. Ha ha ha! Do you feel that your divine power is being depleted rapidly? Under the suppression of my barrier, your divine power will be depleted in a few moves and you will be at my mercy. Xueyu laughed complacently. Then, more crimson sword light appeared and attacked Lu Ming. Is that so? Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. Want to deplete his divine power? You must be kidding. If it were others who were trapped in the Xueyu barrier, they would be doomed. Their divine power would be depleted quickly. However, Lu Ming had the quantifying character formula. Boom! Divine power constantly emerged from the quantifying character formula. Lu Ming's divine power was always at its peak. Third strike of extinction, moon slashing. Lu Ming used the second move of the third strike of extinction. The long spear slashed down, and a crescent-shaped spear light violently slashed out. Countless crimson sword lights were directly extinguished. The terrifying crescent-shaped spear light slashed toward Xueyu. Xueyu's face changed. His figure flashed and appeared on the other side of the battle stage, avoiding Lu Ming's attack. In the Xueyu barrier, his speed was extremely fast. Such a strong attack, I want to see how many moves you can make. Xueyu snorted coldly. Is that so? Let me break your barrier first. Lu Ming's figure soared into the sky and blasted toward the barrier. Blood God Python, kill! Xueyu yelled. Many blood-red pythons appeared in the boundary. There were more than a dozen of them. Each of them was a few hundred meters long, and they charged toward Lu Ming. Moon slashing! Lu Ming continued to use the moon slashing technique and destroyed a blood-colored python with one move. However, there were more than 10 blood-colored pythons. Ha ha ha! Your divine power will be depleted soon! Xueyu laughed. Lu Ming was too lazy to pay attention to Xueyu and continued to attack. Chapter 2794. Lu Ming continued to attack. Moon slash. Moon slash. Moon slash. Lu Ming continued to use moon slash. One after another, the blood-colored pythons were destroyed. Soon, more than a dozen blood-colored pythons disappeared. At this moment, the complacent look on Xueyu's face had completely disappeared. It was replaced by horror, confusion, and disbelief. How is this possible? How can his divine power not be exhausted? Shui Yu muttered to himself. Lu Ming's attack was shockingly powerful. It was definitely a trump card. This kind of move generally consumed a lot of divine power. Even outside, Lu Ming couldn't use it continuously. Not to mention, in his blood rain barrier, he was suppressed by the barrier. The consumption of divine power was several times faster than outside. Logically speaking, Lu Ming's divine power should be exhausted. But why was Lu Ming still so lively? Shui Yu was dumbfounded. Boom! Lu Ming broke through the encirclement of the blood-colored pythons and finally bombarded the blood rain barrier. The blood rain barrier shook violently, but it wasn't blasted open. I don't believe it! Come again! Lu Ming continued to attack, and the long spear kept bombarding. Boom! Boom! The blood rain barrier kept shaking as if it was going to be broken at any time. But every time, it barely blocked it. Ha ha ha, Lu Ming, given your cultivation level, you won't be able to break my enchantment. Just take a beating. I don't believe that your divine power is endless. Even if I have to exhaust it, I will exhaust you to death. Seeing that Lu Ming didn't break the blood rain barrier, Shui Yu laughed, and finally felt relieved. As long as Lu Ming couldn't break the blood rain barrier, Lu Ming would be exhausted to death sooner or later. Whoosh! 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 In the blood rain barrier, more blood-colored sword lights and blood-colored pythons appeared and rushed toward Lu Ming. Just a little bit more then. Quadruple combat power! Lu Ming's eyes flashed, and he began to activate his quadruple combat power. At the same time, he swept his spear to block the attacks of the blood-colored sword lights and the blood-colored pythons. Lu Ming is in a passive position. That's right. However, his strength is truly frightening. Even after being trapped in the blood rain barrier for so long, he still possesses such battle prowess. Truly terrifying. Indeed, Shui Yu is not his opponent in a head-on collision. What a monster! Unfortunately, his attack power is not enough to break the Shui Yu enchantment. In the end, he will lose to Shui Yu. It is indeed a pity! Within the blood rain barrier, as long as the blood rain barrier could not be broken, the blood rain barrier would be able to take the initiative and be in an invincible position. Many people believe that since Lu Ming couldn't break the blood rain enchantment, his defeat was inevitable. Kill, kill, kill! Shui Yu's body was constantly bursting with blood-red divine power, raising the power of the blood rain barrier to its peak. Countless blood-red sword lights and blood-colored pythons rushed towards Lu Ming. At this moment, a low roar came from Lu Ming's body. His battle intent suddenly rose by a notch. Battle character secret art, quadruple combat power was successfully triggered. Moon slaying. Lu Ming let out a long howl and cast the moon slashing technique once again. However, the power this time was much stronger than before. Pun! 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 A crescent-shaped attack burst out. Wherever it passed, all the blood-colored sword lights and blood-colored pythons were destroyed. Break for me! After Lu Ming destroyed the blood-colored sword lights and blood-colored pythons, his spear swept out again. This time, it was directly aimed at the blood rain barrier. Boom! A violent explosion sounded. Then, the blood rain barrier was directly penetrated and split into two halves. How is this possible? Shui Yu roared in shock. It was simply unbelievable. Lu Ming obviously couldn't break the blood rain barrier before. How could he break it in the blink of an eye? Could it be that Lu Ming was still hiding his strength before? Not good, retreat, retreat. Shui Yu reacted and frantically retreated. However, how could Lu Ming let him retreat? He displayed the Nine Heavens Garuda technique. In a flash, he quickly chased after Shui Yu. Then, another moon-slaying attack was launched. The blood rain barrier collapsed. Without the barrier, Shui Yu's speed was reduced by many times. He couldn't be compared to Lu Ming at all. Shui Yu couldn't avoid Lu Ming's attack and could only erupt with all his strength to resist. A blood-red armor appeared on his body, covering his whole body. Then, a battle sword appeared in his hands and he slashed out. Clang! Lu Ming's attack fell on Shui Yu's battle sword. Shui Yu's battle sword vibrated crazily and finally exploded with a bang. This was a mid-grade divine weapon, and it was directly shattered by Lu Ming. Shui Yu's figure retreated rapidly, vomiting blood. He was severely injured. I admit defeat, I admit defeat. Just as Lu Ming was about to launch another attack to kill Shui Yu hurriedly shouted. He felt that he definitely couldn't block Lu Ming's next move. Once the next move was launched, he would fall. If he didn't admit defeat now, when would he? Since Shui Yu admitted defeat, Lu Ming could only stop. Shui Yu hurriedly retreated from the battle stage, vomiting blood continuously. A deep wound appeared on his chest. Even his armor was cracked, and the wound was so deep that his bones could be seen. This was all because of Lu Ming's move just now. Shui Yu lost. Heavens, a third-level true god actually defeated an expert on the true god list. This is too heaven-defying. Many people sucked in a breath of cold air, shocked to the extreme. The heavenly Hong Saint Sun, Fuko Seiko, and the others were greatly shocked, and their eyes were filled with fear. Lu Ming was too heaven-defying. In a few more years, how would they be able to compete with the Kongxian school? Even the Supreme Saint Sun, who had always been calm, had a grave expression on his face. Amazing! Lu Ming is too amazing! Yu Linglong and Wu Zifeng muttered to themselves. Boss is so mighty! In the crowd, and Hai Luchang and the others were also watching. At this moment, their eyes were shining with excitement. They had already submitted to Lu Ming. The stronger Lu Ming was, the happier they would be. As for the outer disciples, they were already dumbfounded. Some of them looked down on Lu Ming when he first entered the sect, but now, they weren't even fit to carry Lu Ming's shoes. Moreover, only a few decades had passed since then. Are there any more battles? Come down quickly! Lu Ming stood on the battle stage and shouted. At this moment, his battle strength was at its peak, and he didn't want to waste time. Everyone looked at each other. The heavenly Hong Saint Sun, Fuko Seiko, and the others' faces were gloomy. Shui Yu was the Tenho Seiko faction's strongest true god realm expert, and he had no one else to send. Fuko Seiko and the others had people under their command, but they weren't confident that they could defeat Lu Ming. Just now, Lu Ming and Shui Yu's battle had been completely one-sided. Therefore, no one made a move. Could it be that Lu Ming was really going to become the 8th holy prince of the Kongxian school today? This thought appeared in many people's minds. Long Xian, make your move! At this moment, a dignified voice sounded. It was the Supreme Saint Sun. Chapter 2795. The Supreme Holy Sun's voice made many people's hearts beat wildly. Horan! 1. The Supreme Holy Sun was going to send someone out, and it was Long Xian. Long Xian was the #1 true god realm expert under the Supreme Holy Sun. He was also the #1 true god realm expert in Kongxian school and ranked 6th on the true god list. The Supreme Holy Sun was going to send Long Xian out. The eyes of the heavenly Hong Saint, Fuko Seiko, and the rest lit up. Yes, Holy Sun! Behind the Supreme Holy Sun, a skinny young man in a black robe nodded and appeared on the fighting ring in a flash. Long Xian is going to make a move. There will be a good show. Many people were looking forward to it. They wanted to know if Long Xian could stop Lu Ming's winning streak. There was no doubt about Long Xian's strength. He was ranked 6th on the True God list and was definitely above Shui Yu. Shui Yu was only ranked 87th on the True God list. I'll give you some time to rest and recover. Long Xian looked at Lu Ming and said lightly. Even though Lu Ming had displayed shocking strength, he was still very confident in himself. No need. Let's fight now, Lu Ming said. Looks like you're very confident. If that's the case, don't say that I'm taking advantage of you. Be careful, Long Xian reminded. A pitch-black spear appeared in his hand. Long Xian's weapon was also a long spear. Bam! Long Xian stomped heavily on the ground. His body was like a stream of light as he dashed toward Lu Ming. A black spear gleam pierced toward Lu Ming like a shooting star. Third stroke of destruction, sky-piercing. Lu Ming also stabbed out with his spear. Boom! The two spear lights collided in the void and exploded with a deafening roar. Violent airflow spread out in all directions. At the same time, the two figures retreated. This collision was a draw. Sacred divine power. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. This Long Xian's divine power was at the saint grade. This person's cultivation had already reached the peak of the true God realm. He was only a step away from the heavenly God realm. As long as he stepped into the heavenly God realm, he would be qualified to become the next saint. There was no doubt about his battle prowess. If Lu Ming had not cultivated the Heaven and Earth 10,000 Dao technique and had 5 divine fires in his body, he would not have been able to fend off Long Xian given the huge difference in their cultivation levels. Otherwise, he would not have been able to fend off Long Xian. Even now, Lu Ming had activated the battle character art to quadruple his battle prowess, but they were still evenly matched. Amazing, truly amazing. A third stage true god actually has such battle prowess. This is the first time I've seen it. Again! Long Xian's eyes were filled with amazement, and he once again charged towards Lu Ming. This time, the power he used was even stronger. His attack divine skill has already reached the peak of the 5th level. Lu Ming's eyes were solemn. Long Xian's attack divine skill had already reached the peak of the 5th level, which was 1 level higher than Lu Ming's divine skill. Fortunately, Lu Ming had the battle character art, and any divine skill he used would be stronger. Otherwise, it would be difficult to fight against him. Third strike of extinction, moon slashing. Lu Ming held the spear with both hands and slashed down. A crescent-shaped spear light slashed towards Long Xian. Boom! The two of them clashed for the second time, but this time, it was still difficult to determine the winner. Amazing, again! Long Xian roared and continued to charge towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming also exerted his strength to the maximum. The divine power of 5 divine fires, the battle character art quadrupled his battle prowess, and his exceptionally strong divine body. He used every bit of his strength to fight against Long Xian. The two of them fought fiercely on the battle platform, and they exchanged hundreds of blows. Lu Ming did not use the ice chain because he knew that Long Xian also had a secret skill that he had not used. He had seen it during the sect grand competition. Whoosh! Suddenly, a black light shot out from Long Xian's body and charged towards Lu Ming at an alarming speed. It's coming! Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, he was highly focused. With a thought, the ice chain flew out and flew towards the black light. Ding! The ice chain collided with the black light, and there was a ding sound. But what made Lu Ming's face change was that the ice chain shattered during the collision. The ice chain could not block the black light at all. After the black light destroyed the ice chain, it continued to stab towards Lu Ming at an alarming speed. Lu Ming could clearly see that it was a scorpion tail. The tail of a scorpion had a black spike at the tip of the tail. It was black and shiny, and it was extremely terrifying. This was Long Xian's secret skill. Bang! The speed of the scorpion tail was too fast. In the next instant, it hit Lu Ming. Lu Ming's 9 layers of crimson gold armor shook violently. It could not block it and was penetrated. Lu Ming used the 9 Heavens Garuda technique and retreated rapidly. But he was still a step too late. He felt a sharp pain in his body. His shoulder was hit, and a small hole appeared. Blood flowed out. Flying all the way to the edge of the battle platform, Lu Ming's figure stopped. What a powerful secret skill! Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Long Xian's scorpion tail's secret skill's attack power was really shocking. This was not because Lu Ming's ice chain was inferior to the other party, but because Lu Ming's cultivation was too weak now. The power of the secret skill would also become stronger as the cultivator's cultivation increased. If Lu Ming's cultivation reached the 9th level True God realm, the power of the ice chain would naturally be extremely shocking. Interesting. To be able to receive one of my moves and only be injured without being defeated, there aren't many in the true God realm. Again. Long Xian's voice sounded. Before his voice fell, his figure had already rushed toward Lu Ming. That scorpion tail on his body turned into a black lightning, piercing toward Lu Ming. Ice chain! Lu Ming's heart stirred. Several ice chains flew out at once. This time, Lu Ming used a total of 3 ice chains. 3 ice chains, like 3 silver snakes, flew towards the other. Ding! 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 3 consecutive collisions sounded. This time, Lu Ming finally blocked the other party's scorpion tail attack. He actually blocked it. That's the secret skill, ice chain. Someone recognized Lu Ming's secret skill. This kind of secret skill was available in the scripture depository. As long as one had points, anyone could exchange for it. 3rd level True God Realm, the power of the ice chain is already so strong. This is already great success. An inner sect elder sighed. How did he cultivate? If one wants to cultivate the ice chain to great success, the cold moon stone is the best choice. Did he obtain several cold moon stones? How is that possible? Another inner sect elder was even more envious. This was because he had also cultivated the ice chain. However, after many years of cultivation, he still hadn't reached great success because he didn't have suitable materials. On the battle stage, the fierce battle between Lu Ming and Long Xian continued. The scorpion tail and the ice chain kept colliding. The long spears in their hands were also constantly clashing. However, they were still evenly matched. I didn't expect you to be so powerful to be able to force me to use my ultimate move. You're the first Kongxian school student. Long Xian's voice sounded. In the next moment, another black light burst out from his body. P.S. Readers, I'm the shepherd boy Ting Zhu. I recommend a free app that supports downloading, listening to books, 0 advertisements, and multiple reading modes. Chapter 2796. Another black ray of light shot out from Long Xian's body. R? A? N? Ana C? O-M? Another scorpion tail. Long Xian's secret technique was somewhat similar to the ice chains. It could not only use one scorpion tail. In the previous sect grand competition, Long Xian had only used one scorpion tail to end the battle. No one knew that Long Xian could use a second scorpion tail. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. Fortunately, Lu Ming also held back. He did not use all of the ice chains. Ice chains, go! Lu Ming waved his hand and 3 more ice chains flew out. After a few consecutive collisions, they successfully blocked Long Xian's scorpion tail. You've actually cultivated all 6 ice chains to the greater success stage. This time, even Long Xian himself was shocked. That's enough. Let's continue. Lu Ming waved his hand again. 9 ice chains appeared on his body and flew out, wrapping around Long Xian. 9! Long Xian's pupils shrank and he growled. His body emitted a black light, and another scorpion tail flew out from his body. 3 scorpion tails. Long Xian had actually cultivated 3 scorpion tails. The 3 scorpion tails and the 9 ice chains kept colliding. Clang! Clang! Dense collisions sounded. In an instant, the two had exchanged more than 100 blows. So powerful! Both of them are monsters! Long Xian is a monster, but Lu Ming is even more of a monster! Lu Ming and Long Xian had used all of their trump cards, which really shocked the spectators. Even the inner elders could not stay calm. On the fighting ring, the 2 figures kept flashing and colliding, fighting fiercely. Those with weaker cultivation could no longer see the 2 figures clearly. Not long after, the 2 of them exchanged a few hundred blows before separating and standing on opposite sides of the fighting ring. Who won? Everyone was curious and looked at the 2 carefully. Look, Long Xian's aura is weaker. His body is covered with a layer of frost. Someone exclaimed. Everyone looked over and saw that Long Xian's body was covered with a layer of frost. Even his hair and eyebrows were covered with a layer of frost. "I've lost!" At this moment, Long Xian spoke and actually took the initiative to admit defeat. He looked at the 9 dancing ice chains behind Lu Ming, revealing a deep sense of dread. Especially one of the ice chains emitted a shocking cold air. After continuous collisions, he felt that the blood in his body was about to freeze. He had to divert a large amount of divine power to resist the cold air. If the battle continued, he would definitely not be Lu Ming's match. What? Long Xian admitted defeat! Lu Ming won! Long Xian's admission of defeat caused an uproar. This result was really out of everyone's expectations. Previously, many people looked down on Lu Ming. They felt that Lu Ming, a third-level true god, would be crushed any time. But now, even Long Xian, who was ranked 6th on the true god list, was not Lu Ming's opponent. Was Lu Ming still human? If you cultivate the forest scorpion tail, I will definitely not be your opponent, Lu Ming also said politely. Long Xian's strength was really shocking. Lu Ming had already done his best, but he still did not have a big advantage. He still relied on the terrifying cold air and the 9th ice chain to suppress Long Xian a little. If the other party had a 4th scorpion tail, Lu Ming would probably not be his opponent. This battle made Lu Ming understand that he could not underestimate the heroes of the world. In the primitive universe, there were all kinds of divine skills and all kinds of terrifying secret techniques. It was normal for some extremely powerful freaks to be born. A loss is a loss. Moreover, it's easier said than done to cultivate the 4th scorpion tail. I accept my loss wholeheartedly. Long Xian was an upright person. After cupping his fists, his figure moved and left the battle stage. Is there anyone else who wants to fight? Lu Ming scanned the surroundings again, but no one responded to him. What a joke. Even Long Xian had been defeated. Who else in the true god realm could fight with Lu Ming? They would definitely lose if they went up. Is there anyone else who wants to fight? Long Zhoushan opened his mouth and asked. Still, no one answered. All right, since no one wants to fight, according to the previous agreement, Lu Ming is officially the saint, Long Zhoushan announced. The great sky saint, Fuko Seiko, and the others' faces were extremely gloomy. This was especially so for the great sky saint Sun and the floating light saint Sun. They had truly suffered a double loss. They had each lost a genius and suffered heavy losses. Humph, this is just the beginning. It's not that easy to secure the position of saint. The great sky saint snorted in his heart. Congratulations, congratulations. Congratulations, Saint Lu Ming. Seeing that Long Zhoushan had made the announcement, some of the inner sect elders cupped their fists and congratulated Lu Ming. Of course, there were also some inner sect elders who remained silent, such as Ying Tsang's master. Seniors, you're too polite. Lu Ming could only cup his fists in response. In fact, he didn't care about the title of saint. However, Long Zhoushan had forced it on him, and Long Zhoushan had placed the nether dragon blood curse in his body, so he could only obey. Alright, this matter ends here. The competition is officially over. Long Zhoushan turned to leave after making the announcement. Before he left, he glanced at Lu Ming. Lu Ming could clearly see that Long Zhoushan's eyes were filled with anticipation and a terrifying malevolence. What is this old man planning? Lu Ming frowned. After Long Zhoushan left, the inner sect elders also left. Lu Ming, no, Saint Lu Ming, congratulations, congratulations. Yu Linglong immediately went up to congratulate him. Brother Lu, congratulations. Wu Zifeng also cupped his fists to congratulate him. You guys don't have to congratulate me. I don't want to be the saint, Lu Ming said helplessly. When the other disciples heard this, they were envious and wanted to trample on Lu Ming. He didn't want to be the saint, and they didn't even have the chance. It was too infuriating. Hee, it's too early to be happy now. A cold voice sounded as the Tianhong saint walked over with his men. Tianhong, what do you want? Ouyang Qingxiang also came over with her men to confront the Tianhong saint. Don't worry, I won't do anything. The Tianhong saint glanced at Ouyang Qingxiang, then looked at Lu Ming and said, "To become a saint, you have to form your own faction and expand the strength of your faction. Only then can you participate in the competition for the position of sect leader." At this point, the Tianhong saint looked around and said, "I, Tianhong, hereby declare that whoever joins Lu Ming's faction will be my enemy." It was a threat, a blatant threat. The Tianhong saint was threatening everyone. Whoever joined Lu Ming's faction would be his enemy. The consequences of becoming the Tianhong saint's enemy were obvious. "Tianhong, don't you think it's too despicable for you to do this?" Ouyang Qingxiang said coldly. P.S. Readers, I'm the shepherd boy Ting Zhu. I recommend a free app that supports downloading, listening to books, zero ads, and multiple reading modes. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.